Our hero woke up and an unknown. Looking around, he wondered where he was. Seeing that he was in an unknown place, he began to frantically check his limbs. The unknown reassured him and told what was happening. This world is called area. Swords, magic, and all types of demons and monsters. Here all this exists. This world is the battle of the battle, where everyone is fighting for survival. This greedy world calls for various people from each dimension. And the first affordable place for called up is. The city began, Genibus. Having finished the story, the unknown looked at the new arrived and asked, "Have you studied martial arts or magic previously?" An embarrassed Bo timidly nodded his head and no. "What is it?" The stranger told the newcomer that he was the best class. Asking his name and what he would tell in the future, he said to follow him to in a local pub. MKH named Lee Songmin. After arriving in the world area, Song mastered hunger and thirst. Noticing this, the stranger took out a flask of water, and he offered to drink. Having picked up the flask, Lee Songmin took the first sip. I felt something was wrong with him. He did not swallow and gaining a full mouth, spitting all the water into the face of a stranger. Having twisted with pain in his eyes, he began to scream. It was difficult to behave like an unsuspecting. Is the goblin paralytic added? It does not change the taste or color of water, but gives it a light fish smell, and when it hits the tongue, it is slightly stinging. Probably now, your eyes very painful. You probably thought that you would deceive a beginner and sell him into slavery. Realizing that he was not a beginner, the stranger fell into a rage. Lee Sun-ming delivered a powerful blow to the groin. Crushing in pain, the stranger fell to the ground. Noticing a blade under his vest, Lee Song-ming grabs him and pierced his ill-wisher with a wit. The first 10 main rule of area: do not trust so easily by others. Having examined the clothes of a stranger, he had 1 blade and 100,000 eri. Our hero looked again at his body and do not find a single scar, as well as muscles. He realized that the past returned, namely 13 years ago, when he was first called to area. And definitely, he understood why it happened, and all because of one thing. My name is Lee Song-min. I 27 years old and I was a mercenary of Iran. I lived the usual life of the unclassed. I tried to earn enough money to have the opportunity to live in area, but due to the fact that I had no talent, I could not climb to the top. I did not give up, and I was looking for a way to change my life. And I managed to grab the only glimpse of the possibility. Once I found an unknown dungeon. After severe trials and a bunch of defeated monsters, I found in it a chest with treasures. I discovered it inside. 1 small stone. I did not know how to apply it, but nevertheless I carried it with him. And once in one of the battles with monsters, I was defeated, and such a system window appeared before my death. Given it, you can understand that that stone returns the owner to the past. Lee Song-min, realizing that he returned 13 years ago, at the very beginning of his path, he launched the status window, in the hope that his status has changed. But he was disappointed. He remained unclassed. Thinking that this is a useless regression, he realized that he remembers all 13 years of his past life. And there are also things that I can do because I am unclawed. In a mysterious and dangerous world area, different foreigners can get, for example, magicians or martial arts. But most often they get to area, foreign. They are pure and can learn any of the directions, although this sounds amazing at first glance. But in fact, they are at the very bottom of Aries ecosystem. Since they have no abilities, they all die in the harsh conditions of area before doing anything. Lee Song-ming, was also bestless off, and lived for 13 years as a mercenary of S rank, passing through all kinds of mockery and humiliation. But, in the end, I die. It was a truly useless life. So, it's time to change your life. Entering House of Healthy Bones. Our hero asked a local doctor about the skeleton modeling procedure. Although it was damn painful, this is my first opportunity in Genibus. I used to have 3 opportunities that I could not get 13 years ago. The first opportunity is a bum skeleton bones that will make it easy to learn martial arts. Elling of the skeleton, you need to be a classless and not to have any skills. Lee Song-ming could not go through this procedure because he had already studied the skill before he found out about it. But in this life, I fulfilled all the conditions and received a low-rank skeleton. Since this doctor will soon die from an accident, very few non-classes have passed this procedure. Now when I have a combat skeleton with a bonus of the absence of a class, I can become stronger and faster. And the second opportunity, this is a true heavenly technique of cultivation. Techniques allowing to accumulate internal energy. There are various categories of techniques, classified by their stability or speed of energy increase. The one that I knew in my past life was a regular second-bit technique cultivation, but in one small Genibus library, is a first-class cultivation technique. The owner of the library did not know its true price, therefore I was able to buy it cheaply. Of the 3 opportunities that I missed in a past life, 2 of them received just a day after my call. The third chance remained, the main prize of the Colosseum, which will be open only in a year. Since only best classes could participate in competitions, I can easily get it. I will have the opportunity to prepare for the Colosseum. That I need now sufficient tools for living. I need to earn at least 30,000 eri per day. To make money and hone your skills, have to hunt monsters. Coming to the seller of equipment, he looked at the mounts, thinking that this was another rifle. Li Songming, without attaching the importance of the merchant's gaze, he examined all the goats, and he liked one armor from the merchant. He learned that this was the armor of the fallen warrior, but she was perfect in size. I went over a bunch of options. He could still choose armor and weapons. Approaching the merchant with equipment, he asked a young mercenary, "Does he have money?" Hearing that he is 60,000 eri, the merchant laughed loudly and ordered to fail from his shop, saying that at least 300,000 eri needed to buy all this. The young mercenary was not going to give up so easily, offering to take this equipment on credit. But the merchant was clearly not impressed. Then Li Sunming offered the merchant his clothes. She is from a highly developed measurement. There are people who dream about her. I guarantee quality. If you sell it to the right store, you will get at least 300,000 eri. Slip young mercenary. What? The merchant laughed again. What is the matter with you? The merchant asked. First you make an innocent face and want me to regret you, and now you suddenly start to bargain. Are you best class, right? And you probably hope that I would regret you and sell you cheap. That's right. I will be very grateful if you do this. A young mercenary. Aho, you are an unscrupulous bastard. The merchant shouted. Take equipment, and I do not need your clothes. The merchant clearly liked the guy. In it he saw a potential regular client. Make sure that you will pay me 240,000 eri as soon as you get this money, he said. In addition, the boy nodded in response and the saying, the survival rate is very dependent on whether you have armor, even if it is light armor. It was a good decision to buy armor by a young mercenary, even if it was removed from the dead man. In general, it is unusual to receive such concessions, especially from merchants. It is very unusual for area. Maybe he wanted to stab me with a knife. In any case, I must be careful, he thought. Finding himself in the middle of the forest, our mercenary quickly recognized the entrance to the hunting grounds. After all, he has been here and repeatedly. How miserable I was 13 years ago, he thought. But now, with the help of the technique of lightning fast step, our mercenary ran into the lands. On the way he met the first enemy. It was a forest goblin. The technique of spiritual spear. One shot, one kill. Goblin did not have a chance. After a powerful spear, the mercenary cried out in pain. Looking at his hand, he saw a burn. One shot. One corpse is a movement in which the spear shoots using the left hand as a barrel. If the hand is not trained, then the technique causes burns. With a grin, looking at his hands, he thought, I must first train my hands. Although this is a useless regression, but still, this was the beginning of my new story. He cried. The end of the first chapter. In the late evening, after the victory over the goblins, Li Song minds to the tavern. Behind the bar, Uncle Jack meets him. Sonmin, is you? The uncle asks. Sonmin, with a bag in his hand, approaches the bar and holds it out. Uncle. Inside the bag is goblin teeth and liquids from their bodies. Uncle Jack nods. Quite. But tell me, where did you get this special bag? Let's just say, I got it cheaply from a merchant with whom I cooperate. For this, I allow you to stay for 2 days if you sell it in the guild of Uncle answered joyfully. Okay, enough about that. I seriously think that really amazing, baby. Sonmin was clearly embarrassed. But Uncle Jack continued, when the unclawed guy came to me for the first time and offered parts of the monsters as a fee for housing, I thought you will die soon. 2 weeks have passed, and you hunt and bring prey every day. You are amazing. In truth, this is what people who have talent look like. Nobo's class will be as good as you. But his uncle did not have time to finish, as he saw Songin behind the back of the room leaving towards his room. Hey, where are you? He called out his uncle. I need a vacation, Sonmin answered. Having come to his room, Sonmin was furious. Talented, he shouted. No, it doesn't suit me. I have been an outcast all my life, and after all suffering, I finished my life as a miserable C-class mercenary. Opening the status, he looked at all his combat techniques that he studied in his last life. Thanks to the characteristics of Ariat, he was able to remember how they work. These were the lowest combat equipment, regardless of what level they are. This is not enough to get up. The true technique of heavenly cultivation is the only hope of Sonmin, but each technique has its own limits. Sitting to meditate, blue energy began to accumulate around Sonmin. The next day, Pauman was going to go to the forest for another hunt, but then he called out, "Are you going into the forest for adversely?" The female voice said. Having turned out, Sonmin saw the daughter of an innkeeper named Lula. "Are you going into the forest again?" And you asked yourself, "I am a foreigner. If I want to survive, I will have to kill monsters to make money to earn money." Sonmin, "Are you a fool?" The girl laughed. "There are so many works in the world, and you do not understand what. You can get to our hotel. My father will be happy to accept you. I did not cook and clean up the guy. Maybe you still think about this proposal. The hotel is not so bad." The guy grinned, and he left the tavern. Leaving the tavern, Sonmin recalls that once already lived like that, agreeing with others, "I can do it again, but this time, I don't want to, because this time, I will achieve what I envied. I will do everything in my power and I will live better." Walking along the streets of the city of Sunning, hears a ringing. Morning ringing means that a new foreigner arrives. And then a teleport appears in the center of the square. From there appears a mysterious little girl. The new foreigner looked like a child. He must probably be confused, thought Sonmin. If this will continue, he will attract a lot of extra attention to himself. Suspicious personalities are approaching the mausoleum with the same flask as to the host when he was called up. Sonmin in bewilderment what to do. Realizing that this does not concern him, he unfolds and leaves. But here it crashes. Raising his head up, he saw a big man in front of him. A man looked at him with a grin and said, "It seems you broke my bone." Not having time to answer, Sonmin receives a powerful blow in the face. The townspeople standing in the square do not understand what is happening. But the man calms them. "You see, this fool broke my bone, and I decided that moral compensation is needed. I hope you will not pay attention to this and go your way." Citizens, realizing that it is better not to interfere, they gradually leave home. The guy standing at the foreigner. The name of the man is called Boss Hein. "What do you have there?" Having woke up, Sonmin realized that they were from one gang. It also became clear that this bastard Boss Hein, master of martial arts 3 rank. There are several types of martial arts in the world and all of them differ in rank. The 3rd rank is the lowest and it can be achieved by spending a little time. However, Sonmin has not yet managed to achieve it. Alone, Sonmin is not to defeat the Boss Hen. Returning himself, Sonmin shouted the newly arrived foreigner so that he would not drink water because it is poisoned. The child looked at him and poured the contents of the bottle on the ground. "For such a worthy guy, you do 2 stupid acts," say Boss Hen and approaches the bowl. Suddenly, Hyun breaks from the place and flies towards Sonmin. Sonmin, with the help of the technique, "I activate a low-ranking combat skeleton." Sonmin strikes with the elbow on the Hen body. Hen's wards in bewilderment. Sonmin also inflicts a series of blows, but the Boss Hen activates the iron skin technique and raddies all the blows of Sonmin. "Do you think you learned a couple of tricks and can you defeat me?" Hyun says, grinning. "It won't work on me." Sonmin realized that he had the muscles of the child, and he did not break through the iron body of Hen. One of the wards of Hen began to scream so that the boss ended the kid faster. Otherwise the guard would arrive due to nose. But Sonmin was not going to give up. The child looked in surprise after everything that was happening. At this moment, Hyun makes a jerk towards Sonmin. Realizing that the hands of he will not win, Sonmin uses his spear. But not having time to grab the spear, the child of a foreigner blocks him. "What did you say there?" "Repeat," the child says. But at that moment the fist of Hen flies towards Sonmin. A child with light waves of his hands beat off a blow. From such a collision, Hen flies away by several meters. "How dared to kill me?" the child says. Sonmin does not understand what is wrong with this child. After all, the attack with his palm was nourished with internal energy. This is not the first or even the second rank. This child is at the peak of martial arts. This cannot be she. It's a little heavenly demon, Vi Zhong. There is a demonic cult in the world. They are representatives of unorthodox sects that worship the authorities themselves. The strongest will become the head of a demonic cult and will be called a heavenly demon. A student of a heavenly demon is called a young master. And this young master who fell into another world is called Little Heavenly Demon, Vi Hong. Once in the room of Sonmin, a little heavenly demon introduced himself and called his age. Sonmin, learning that he was 13 years old, in shock. Vi Hong found out that this world is called Area and it differs from the world in which he lived. And that in this world there is no demonic cult. After the answers heard, Vi Hong began to laugh. Li Sonmin, tell me that you then shouted to me in the area, the demon asked. I wanted you to not drink water, in an implement, answered Sonmin. Laughing loudly, a little demon learned from Sonmin how he dared to contact him in such a tone. Sonmin knocked his head and apologized for his tone. The demon only smiled slightly. You know that I am engaged in martial arts, he asked. But your martial arts, Sonmin, just garbage. Where did you study such shitty arts? Sonmin stood in a misunderstanding what this little demon wanted from him. But the demon only looked at him and said that he would teach him real martial arts. But only on one condition. If we are friends. Sonmin had no choice, and of course he agreed. The end of the second chapter. Early morning, a little boy called his father and asked to find a friend for him. How do you know what a friend is? Father answered. The boy took out the book and said that he found out from her. Yes, my boy is right. Everyone needs friends. If you are an ordinary person, then this is so. But you are the one who sits on the throne and will rule the cult of heavenly demons. So don't screw your head with nonsense and go training your father. The boy ran away in tears. Father stayed and thought. It sounds terrible, of course, but in practical training, there were 50 people, but a 10-year-old child easily killed them all. Forgive me, Vig. Born by the heir to the cult, he began to train when he was still a child, so he did not have time to make friends. Everything. Whether the host from that day on, you my friend, exclaimed the demon. So the friendship between the 13-year-old demon and the 27-year-old mercenary began. Vig kept his promise and began to teach Sonmin martial arts. The first was the technique of cultivation of amethyst cloud. During training, Vig asked Ponin to turn to him on you. Vig explained that he practices the technique of the grace of the devil. Only the leader and his heir can practice it. Since then, a month has already been held hard training. Sonmin studied the cultivation technique of amethyst cloud at Vig. Although he passed only 1 month, he became much stronger. The current rank of martial arts Sonmin is somewhere between the second and third. But Vig was clearly not very pleased with what Sonmin learned in a month. But Sonmin did not give up and continued training. One day on the way in the forest appeared Orc. This was no problem. With a powerful spear blow, he pierced the Orc. Orcs usually do not go one at a time, and they do not live in these environs. Where did he come from here? Having examined the Orc, Sonmin notes the approach of a strange person. The man came up and introduced himself as his name He Lun. It is called the Destroyer Blade. He came due to the appearance of orcs in these environs. Returning to the city, He Lun led Sonmin to his friends. The first was a small monkey to the San Ran. The second introduced a black knife and drank. There was also a magician from Velas's school named Reiner there. They told that the orc faction founded a new village in this area. There were already reports of attacks on the nearest villages and the murder of beginner researchers. Therefore, the Guild of Mercenaries announced a award of 20 million eri to the one who will destroy the village of orcs. If we exterminate them, we will divide the prey equally by the number of people, mercenaries said. This is about 7 million eri per person. There is only one problem: can these mercenaries be trusted? Without hesitation, Sonmin still agreed. Great, you made the right choice, answered He Lun. Looking around, Sonmin saw 2 people with large backpacks. The mercenaries said that these are ordinary business porters, so do not worry. They carry bags and receives the rest of the money from the expedition. Do not screw your head. The end of the chapter. The next day, the mercenaries advanced towards the village of orcs. On the way, Sonmin found out that there are about 50 orcs in the village, but 20 of them are old people and children. Having stepped closer to the village, Hai-Lun told a plan to capture the village. Everything is divided into two teams of Hai-Lun and Sonmin in one, all the rest in the other. The essence of their plan is such lure of orcs outside the village. At this time, the magician Rhaenyra with the help of the magic of the wind will spread the smell of a person, and the monkey and the night blade will hide and attack the ambush. Sonmin and Hae-Moon will light the lamp and lure the rest of the orcs. This will divide them into two groups and kill them. Sonmin doubted the correctness of this plan, but there was no choice. We almost on the spot said Hai-Lun. Mercenaries begin to be divided into two groups. Separated, Sonmin and Hai-Lun, together with the squire, begin to approach the village. Due to long trips to the squire, there was no longer a face. Sonmin noticed that the poor fellow is already barely carrying his backpack. Stopping, he asked the name of the bus class. Without class called Brass. Sonmin felt sorry for Brassus, and he warned him that he could not help him in the event of an orc attack. So he suggested that he choose to run away or stay, because this guy will not help him either, that's for sure. He does not even pay attention to him. That the brother cannot run away, because he understands what punishment he will receive from the guild if he runs away. Okay, just be careful, Sonmin told him, and they continued their way. After some time, they approached the village of orcs. Having avoided the patrols of the orcs, through the thick of the forest, the village was to see. Hai-Lun had already begun to light the lamp, but Sonmin stopped it, taking out the bottle from the bag. Hai-Lun was surprised to see the bow between the spatial bag, and he asked what he got out of her. It was water. If we mix it with mud, and with a cramp into our bodies, it will help to mask our smell, Sonmin answered. Having knocked down the dirt in a puddle, the bow began to ride abundantly in her. Then Hai-Lun himself joined this, loosing mud. They lit a lamp, and it orcs immediately paid attention. Without wasting time, Hai-Lun proposed a plan. Send forward a porter to distract the orcs, and at this time they will attack behind. Sir, but I will die, Brass answered. But if you do not go, then you will definitely die. Sonmin clearly does not like this plan, and he offered himself for the role of the executor of this plan, if Hai-Lun, of course, do not mind. Hai-Lun was not opposed, but he clearly did not like it. At this time, 13 orcs advanced from the village. Without waiting for an ambush, the dream of Ming jumped out of the forest, and began to shred the orcs one by one. To finish of the next orc, Sonmin thought. Why did he help this guy? Can this be considered sympathy? No. It is unlikely that there are no connections between them, and they are clearly not friends. Most likely, this happened due to the fact that they are both non-class. There is only one law in this world, and this is the law of power. Remembering how Vig taught him, calling it without talented, the Council of People's Commissars has applied a blow from a distance. Now three-step a technique of spiritual spear. Thanks to these techniques, the orcs fell on the spot. Some of them even tried to avoid this fate. Interrupting all the orcs, Hai-Lun cut off their ears to them. This was necessary in order to provide their quality as evidence. Another group had to do this too. Having passed his ears to the porter, he said that he is now responsible for them. Time has come to unite with two teams. And they advanced to them, approaching the meeting place. Another part of the detachment was already waiting for them. After asking, "Why are they so long? Why are they in the mud?" the monkey thought they had problems. Hai-Lun replied that there were no problems, but now they will begin. Then Paley took out her dagger and threw the magician right into the chest. And Hai-Lun took his sword, waved to the monkey. Sonmin repelled an attack with a spear. Hai-Lun shouted violently, "Do not get down underfoot, baby." Sonmin recalled that he had already seen the execution of Hai-Lun in the square for the past, that he killed all his partners during the execution of the assignment. Although your skills are impressive, you are still weaker than me. Hail martial arts for the one who is between the second and third rank. He will be a rather complicated opponent. Despite this, I read all the movements, although he tried to hit the first. Sonmin uses the length of his spear to strike. Sonmin is clearly not weaker than his opponent. He is experienced from the past, as well as training at a small heavenly demon. This, of course, is impressive, but will it help him? Hai-Lun laughed and began to cough with blood. It turned out that when he wiped himself with dirt, Sonmin mixed up the poison of a long-acting type there. It was not directly visible to it. It should not be fatal. Halen, in addition to everything, began to shake his hands, realizing that the situation was already getting out of control. He presented a sword to Brass's throat. He remembered how the bow repeatedly helped the porter, so he warned him. If he took one step, he would cut his throat. Is he stupid? Sonmin thought. He really thinks that if he takes someone hostage, then it will save him. Sonmin worked for many years a mercenary in a past life. The only reason why help Brass is that they are both unclassed. Now is clearly not the time to get lost of your emotions. You need to focus on reality. Under normal conditions, I could deal with him, but I need to think about myself. Moreover, it is still incomprehensible how long the poison will act, and you need to maintain strength in case the monkey loses. There is no more time to act. Not having time to start, Brass made a bandwagon, and he threw Halun on his back. Halun stuck a blade into him. Sonmin immediately pierced his spear into him. The monkey was still able to defeat in battle. Brass sacrificed himself so that Sonmin could defeat Halun. We took the body of Halun to Vante to the guild of mercenaries. In the guild, we and the monkey and I shared a reward for the mission and prey. Returning your room. Vig was already waiting for him. Sonmin immediately quit the bed. If there were a little more strength, Brass would not have died. Sonmin thought that he no longer wanted to do in this life that he did not like him. Vig asked if he killed someone because it smells the smell of human blood. Sonmin said that this is the blood of a rank master who tried to kill him. Vig immediately suspected that Sonmin was hiding something. The bow did not understand why. Vig thinks so. Maybe because you could kill a ranking master. But no, because Vig taught his technique, the cultivation of amethyst cloud. Therefore, this became quite possible. When Vig walked around the city and tried to understand this world, he saw a lot and learned about the position of the best class. Most of them are now on the verge. This is understandable, because people can thoughtlessly kill beetles, but at the same time they may need incredible determination to kill a small rabbit. That your first day, when you were called, you went straight into the forest and hunted monsters. What was a strange boy in this strange? Do you think that another best classy went one day to kill monsters in the forest? They can put their lives on con and kill another creature, but it is difficult to do it to those who have not learned to kill. All you are only 14, and you began to hunt on the first day. How you did it if you have no talent? Now you have skills like a person who has been doing a single year, and this is somehow strange. You teach to use the spear for only 2 months, but your spears are already quite good. Household appliances do not leave much to be desired, but there are no signs and mistakes that beginners would make. You have no talent, but you learned martial art in just 2 months. Who did you shout? Vig. Sonmin pretended that he did not understand anything. Vig replied that he does not really like people who can, especially if these are his friends. Everyone has their own secrets. Is it good to try to throw it out? Someone has it in a friendly way. Vig was clearly not pleased with his friend's answer, and he offered to tell him his secret in return for his. This is a secret about unsurpassed martial arts. Sonmin only laughed. He said that he does not need them because there is no talent and not enough internal energy to use them. Then Vig proposed to give 20 of his internal energy. Sonmin clearly did not expect such an answer. Vig was just very interesting to know the secret. After all, Sonmin is his only friend, and he wants to know everything about him, even his secrets. This is what friendship meant to him. Sonmin agreed, only asked not to kill him after he has a secret. Vig laughed and agreed. Now that we are ready, I will begin the first, said Vig. He unfastened his hair. He said that he was actually a girl. The boy was shocked by this news. My father hid this from the sect, since only men can become the leader of a demonic sect to live like a boy. I was used to living like this, and when I got here, I continued to hide this information. There are the secrets of Vig and she asked to tell her secret now that the bow still could not recover. Calming away, Sonmin said that he was a regressor. The girl was clearly surprised no less than he from her. That if so, then your features make sense. If it would be in my world, but it would be impossible, since it is another world, then everything can be so. But why was this request not to kill you? The girl asked. Then Sonmin told her that he was actually not 14, but 27 years old. That she might well think that he was trying to manipulate her. But the girl laughed. After all, she herself approached him. It was herself that she wanted to train him, and then she asked for his friends. It turns out that he did not use, but she did what she wanted. Therefore, there is no reason to kill him and destroy their friendship. She spent the stream for 2 months and recognized him with her friend. It was very important for her. Sunmin thanked her. She still noticed that it was all a little sad, what he had reached in 13 years in area. There are so many more questions left, but now there is no time on them. Let's leave it later, said the girl. And now it is time to convey part of your internal energy to you, as I promised. Internal energy accumulated by the body of martial arts masters. They use this energy and show superhuman capabilities. Due to the fact that there are limited means to improve internal energy, all the masters of martial arts spend their whole lives developing their energy and gradually increasing its quantity. Internal energy is incredibly important for all masters. Starting the transmission of energy, the girl told Soman that he had unclean blood vessels and a lot of dirt has accumulated in them. At least 14 years of the same late age to learn by martial art, but in any case, she will give him 20 of her internal energy. It depends only on him how many of these 20 he can absorb. And now, use the technique of cultivating amethyst cloud. Energy transfer was not a very pleasant activity. Sunmin's hands began to light up in purple energy, and then the whole body. It was only 20 of the girl's internal energy that was more than Smin has accumulated in his entire past life. Sunmin was able to absorb only about half of the energy. There is no reason to be upset. The rest of the energy will penetrate his meridians. If he will continue to use the technique of cultivating amethysts, then he will be able to make this energy. Having finished the transfer of energy, the girl collapsed onto the bed. Energy transfer was very exhausted. The boy did not understand why she was doing this for him. Because we are friends, I answered Vig. That he should not feel the pressure, because in return she does not want anything. All this was only for her own self-satisfaction. She also said that she would teach his spear techniques that is perfect for him, and she will teach him the highest technique of heavenly spear, which the king of copies used 100 years ago. The girl once again reminded that this is all for her self-satisfaction. Or rather for her first friend. The boy once again wanted to thank Vig, but he received a powerful blow to the chin. Girls did not like the fact that he always thanks her, because they are so. Friends should help each other. Therefore, she took him by the neck, put him on the bed next to her. Instead of gratitude, do it better for me, she said. And she asked to tell him what she was in a past life. Sunmin agreed, since he had no choice. He said that he was busy, for he made ends meet, so he knows about her only from rumors. A month after she was called up, she left the city and disappeared, approximately dressed for 3 years. Most likely, she traveled all these 3 years. Most of all in this life I want freedom. When I was a receiver of a demonic cult, my freedom was conditional. I could not go wherever I wanted, so they called me to this world. I am so glad that I met a friend like you. The girl also said that she was leaving in a month, that she will enjoy this world and her freedom. But all this, of course, will happen after she teaches his highest technology of heavenly steer, and then go on a long journey, as in a past life. And what will you do? She asked Sunmin. Is there a dream, Min? How will you live this life? How do you use this chance that you were given to you? Will you be ordinary best classic again, wandering around the dungeons in the hope of finding something valuable? So until death. But Shredman planned to live this life better than past. The girl seemed somehow boring. The rest of the goals of Sunmin are not yet known, but everything will be in the future. The girl asked to tell something more about his past life. There is not much spoken, there is a lot to tell you, something to tell. He thought a lot about his past life in Genibus Bester, and would anyone in his life whom he could call his friend, most likely, was not. Just like he is the first friend. Vig home. She was his first friend too. It was a very long night. They talked a lot. And so a month has passed. Let's see what you could learn in a month. It is time to conduct the last sparring. After this sparring Vig will leave. Therefore, Sunmin will have to try very hard to prove to her that she was not in vain spent her time. And he rushed at her with a spear. The girl warned him that he would give him a head of 20 movements. Sunmin, understanding this, I had to think what technique to use it. No wonder they studied for a month. Sunmin chose the highest technique of heavenly spears, taking into account the technique, the spiritual spears of which he used. I would start with her, he thought. The large technique of the spear of the Council of Ministers is the first step, a deadly blow, the persecution of the soul, but the girl easily repulsed this blow and dodged the second attempt. Then the second step is a lightning punch that separates the space. Again, having evading the blows, the girl praised the Council of Ministers, and she said that the parry is turning out the enemy's weapons, turning the weapon down to block the enemy's attack. After that, it is best to use piercing. This is the basis of a spear possession, the girl said. But Sonmin did not know this, because he studied all this on his own. When he began to strike at the blow, using the back, mixing every spear blow with its weight, Sonmin continued to strike. Of course, the blows were not bad, but the girl continued to dodge. There was a very big difference in the development of martial arts between them. He only became a master of the second rank with the internal energy that VIG gave him. She retorts all his blows with one hand. She is at the peak of martial arts. What already surrendered? The girl asked. He was not going to give up to Sonmin. Otherwise, apply a series of blows one by one. He tried to strike at least some damage to his sparring to a partner, but everything was by. And the last 20th blow. And the spear is in the face of the girl. But it disappears sharply, and it turns out from behind him. Again defeat. But the girl did not upset the guy. Even without internal energy, he was born to engage in martial arts. Depending on the fact that he never got a spear, he was able to feel the attack of VIG. This is already called skill. She said not to be upset, she will wait 10 years. So far, this sparring was too easy for her. She was pleased with his skills, the last attack was especially good. A month ago, Shredman did not yet know about his goal. Therefore, she suggested making herself a goal in life. A person should have a goal. If he does not have a goal, his life will resemble a ship that is useless from drifting into the sea. She told him that he would become strong enough to fight her in 10 years. Only the fact that he will make her his goal does not mean that he can become like her, because he does not have such talents that VIG possesses. She also accepted the genius of many elixirs, therefore, she does not understand him. They have different starting lines. The girl asked him to calm down and said that he was mistaken. This is all the poor quality of Sonmin, inferiority. This is the inferiority from the past life, and it restrains it. I was very furious to Sonmin, because he was called to area only with his own hands and without talent. He risked his life when he simply even wanted to kill a wild this mud he lived, he died in it. The girl reminded him that he is now professionally studying martial arts. And in just 3 months, he was able to become a master of martial arts of the second rank. Do not miss their chance due to their inferiority in a previous life. Now that you have received a chance for a second life, you must strive for something. Just do not be angry with me, I tell the girl said. But Sonmin was clearly angry. He could not even think that a 13-year-old child would give lectures to him. Well, if you want it, then I will make you my goal and will train after 10 years. When we meet, I will stuck a spear in your heart, Spemen. But the girl did not quite mean it. She wanted to arrange friendly sparring after 10 years. The guy continued to be angry. Then VIG leaned toward him, and she said that their sparrow will be impatiently await. That the guy was very embarrassed. That the guy only dodged, saying that she was disgusting. The girl was getting closer and closer to the face of Sonmin. She said that she would wait 10 years when she will be a beauty, and he will not be able to refuse her. And then Sonmin set himself 3 goals. The first goal is to survive. The second goal is to take advantage of the memories of his previous life, and the third goal of VIG. The girl gathered on the road. Sonmin wished her a good road and said that we will see you after 10 years. The end of the chapter. There are 3 possibilities that Sonmin can get in Genebis. The first possibility of a combat skeleton. The second opportunity is a true heavenly technique of cultivation. And the last opportunity is the BIS class tournament. You regularly hold tournaments to Genebisa, and Spomina took part in the BIS class tournament. 10 months after VIG, he became a master of martial arts of the first rank. With the help of this force, he easily won and received the prize of the tournament champion, a small pill in the increase in internal energy. Sonmin accepted it even more, increased the amount of his internal energy. With this, he received everything that Genebisa could. It was a sunny day outside, and Sonmin went to his acquaintance of the merchant. He congratulated on the victory in the tournament. The boy went to him to say goodbye. The merchant said that he was very proud of him. I wished, good luck, because people who have a head on their shoulders live longer, and gave him between the spatial bag. Of course, she was not new, but her capacity is more than 1.5 times. It was his farewell gift. The merchant smiled and asked that if the little one becomes popular, let him tell everyone that when he was a newcomer who was helped by a street seller Hans. Sanmina clearly did not like this, but he thanked the merchant and went. Coming to the tavern to my uncle. On the threshold he was met by Lula. She knew that he was leaving, because he removed his room, although he did not do this before. All the Anomarians leave sooner or later. Therefore, Sanmin should also leave. The girl was clearly upset by this event. Wishing him himself all the worst, she ran away to her room in tears. And then an uncle appeared. He asked for forgiveness for her, referring to her age, but Sanmin understood everything so he did not hold on her evil. Uncle took out a cloak and handed it to the boy. It was a cape that his youth wore. Magic was imposed on it. Even pointed knives could not pierce it. There is also a magic of maintaining temperature, but it is not too powerful and does not withstand to cold or to hot temperature. The boy thanked him, although she was too big, but it was a gift. Uncle wished good luck, and Sanmin left the tavern. Walking along the streets of the city, Sanmin hears that someone is approaching from behind him. Turning around, he sees it was Lula. She ran up and said that she was taking her words back. I asked him not to die and come back. Sanmin was surprised that she ran after him only for the sake of these words. She said that if he suddenly got tired, then he can always return back to this city. Having gathered her strength, she admitted that she was in love with him. Saying goodbye, they parted. It took me past life for 3 years to leave this city, and in this only year, I had no good memories of a past life, but this time everything changed. Someday, can I return? After some time, our hero came to the mountain of Mushi. He met some incomprehensible creature with a hood on his head. But Sanmin came here only with one purpose. There are 9 years left before meeting with Vig. I got to understand where to go to. Our hero can go to Bakamharan, become a mercenary, a past life. That is, a more reliable version of Musha Mountain. Of area, who symbolizes training and repentance, is the mountain its territory, whereby applying fines for your feelings and bodies you can strengthen the profit from your training several times more. Having looked around, Sanmin is trying to remember where the mountain is. Having found the path, Sanmin all the same reached the mountain, and he received fines imposed on him as a priest. There were 2 first fine severity. These are fines for which you feel constant severity. It is imposed on the body, on objects that I have in the inventory, even a spatial bag and bread. And the second fine, this sense of taste, it is much worse than the fine made food, not only disgusting to taste. But he changed her appearance. The bread that I just chewed was like insect bodies. Sanmin thought that he had overestimated his strength, but there was no longer back. Of course, it was possible to return to Bakamharan and become a mercenary in the rank, but thoughts about Vig did not leave him. Gathering his strength, he took bread, started eagerly stuffing into his mouth. It tasted with a rare shit. Sanmin was not going to stop. A week has passed. Sanmin notices a wandering deer in the forest. After waiting for the moment, he jumps from the back to him, but he stops directly, and the deer is calmly running away. Sanmin is sorry, an innocent animal, but he only ate bread and drank water all week. He has not enough nutrients. On this mountain, you yourself must take care of everything, including clothes, and about these also part of the trial of Musho. This mountain is harsh not only with a huge temperature range, but also with strong and fast beasts. Due to the fine of gravity, Shredman cannot be drawn normally, and because of a fine of taste, he cannot eat normally. He was going to train here for at least 2 years. Even if the efficiency of training rises, then he still will not be able to train normally, because he is too weak. A small pebble flies onto the tree behind. Turning around, he saw some kind of stranger. Looking at her, he asked who she was. Since there was no ban on the mice of mice, the girl pointed to the label on her neck. It was a penalty for a voice. She could not speak. She threw a deer in front of the owl, the work of the coach, to whom he hunted. How did she do it? Approaching him, she wrote in the sand what she watched for several days, and at such a pace he would die, so she decided to help him. It is not clear why she helped him, but it turned out that she was just kind. The girl who suddenly appeared in front of him helped him, introduced herself like a kind. Each time Sonmin had problems, she appeared and helped. He even managed to find out her name. He could not help but be surprised when he recognized him, because her name was Peak Sogo. This was known for the name in his previous life, and for her abilities was named the Silent Flash of Pixu. But the problem was different. Pixogo died 8 years later in a dungeon. At the hands of a small heavenly Jihang. Rules of Mount Mushi 1. Pilgrims receive a fine. 2. It takes another fine for 6 months of staying on the mountain. 3. Pilgrims cannot harm each other. But most of all, Sonmin is interested in what happened in that dungeon. Thinking, he did not notice how the girl came. She thought he was starving again and therefore came. Sonmin found out from her if she could use telepathy. But its current fine was also prohibited from using telepathy. Submin noticed the seal on her left hand. She explained to him that she received a fine on her left hand. Then another 6 months passed and a new fine was added. She asked him whether it was difficult for him to live without enjoying food. Sonmin was fines can pilgrims get? Then the girl suggested, introducing him to other pilgrims. Not having time to answer anything, the girl disappeared with lightning speed, but immediately returned, remembered that he had a fine for heaviness. The girl advised him to focus on high-speed techniques. Then Shredman asked her to teach high-speed technology, but the girl refused. The girl knocked it on her shoulder. Since he is too slow, she will carry him on her back. Respect to understand what was happening, they set off. Arriving at the place of Sonmin, he smelled a very unpleasant smell. In front of him, he saw Scarlet Receiver of the future Archmage, who had a fine who forbade her to wash. Also there was Doc by June, a ghost blade with a fine for vision. Now there are only 4 pilgrims on the mountain. Sonmin was very surprised, because he knew that they were all incredible people, who would make a name in the future. Although now they are unknown, but soon all area will know their names. Then the Archmage asked what was his fine. Upon learning that he had 2 fines, she immediately warned him that most likely, he would not hold out for a long time. But the elder interrupted her. The elder understood that the guy came here to overcome his limits, regardless of what to pay for it. Sonmin only confirmed the words of the old man. Many different people gather on this mountain, but there are only 4 left, who were able to hold out for more than 6 months. Sogo also began a test with 2 fines. Sonmin asked where the 4th. The 4th was the spam. Do not even try to meet with him, warned Sonmin. It will not end in anything good. He is too dangerous. 4 months have passed. Sonmin's fines became stronger. The time, he was already used to them. It was even heavier, and the food was even more disgusting. But to give up is not an option. After 4 months of training, the technique of the cultivation of Amethyst Cloud reached the 3rd level. There are many difficulties on this mountain, but these difficulties bring great benefits. In the afternoon, Sonmin coached the highest technique of Heavenly Spears, and at night the technique of cultivating Amethyst Cloud. With every step, he feels that his bones will break down, and the muscles will break, but he must do it for VIG, because now it is the purpose of his life. Sonmin noticed that during his stay on the mountain his body changed and thought that he was already time to change his clothes. A little deeper into the forest, he noticed one guy. He was sitting on a stone and asked Sonmin why he had never seen him here. It was the same flame about which the pilgrims warned him. The boy approached him and asked why he was so nervous, because he just asked his name. You probably heard about me from others, but since you heard why yours did not come to me to say hello, I just need a friend of my age, said the guy. I obviously did not want to talk to him on Sonmin, and saying that he needed to train. He began to leave the plast. And this is the genius thought Sonmin. The guys finally wanted to know, but what will he train with? Sonmin wanted to show him a spear, but he looked at his hand no longer there. Looking back, he saw that the spears were already in the hands of the play. But how? The largest humiliation that the martial arts master can receive is the loss of his weapons. Sonmin, in addition to anger, also felt confusion. Plam, as if nothing had happened, held a spear in his hands. He said that he would try something now, return it back. He wants to copy his technique. The highest technique of the Spium Speak Sonmin is the 2nd step, and then a lightning punch that separates the space. He easily repeated all the techniques of Sonmin, which he studied for months. Not only did he repeat the technique, but he also improved them. The PM smiled and said, Do not worry at all because I'm better than you. He did not understand why everyone was coming here to train. It is not necessary on how they train. It is enough for him to just look at them, and not only copy their equipment, but also improve it. The eyes of Sonmin and other pilgrims of this game no longer look like such exceptional geniuses. After all, now I met him. How to look at these geniuses as an ordinary person. Although Vig was also a genius, she did not need to show and praise herself. But this guy knows how he looks for a normal person, but still continues to praise himself. TM asked Sonmin to tell about his fight, but he refused him to say anything. Then the guy found out if he needed his spear. The council of ministers fell into a rage and ran to the flame. So about you give up and leave the mountain with your talent. You can go to the city and live easily, I asked the flame. In response, Sonmin tried to hit the blast, but on the mountain you cannot harm each other. In any case, Shredman is too weak to resist such an enemy. At that moment Sogo appeared. Plam gave a spear, but the Council of People's Commissar should raise one thing that the spear that he used is very good, but it still cannot use it all the same. The higher the level of equipment, the more difficult it is to study further. On this mountain, the stronger the fight, the more blessing is given by the goddess Mushi. The stronger you bring yourself to the limit, the faster you become stronger. If you want to become strong, at this moment, the juice closed the mouth of the Plam, and he did not have time to finish. Sonmin rushed to run. Soga tried to shout after him. For a fine of voice, she did not allow her to do this. Having fled deep into the forest, Sonmin called the goddess of Mushi. She arrived at his call. Svanmin asked to add another penalty. The goddess teleported him. It was a space that belonged to her. The goddess knew that Sonmin does not like her, as she heard him cursed her. So you want to add a penalty, she asked, but you already have fines for taste and severity. You are difficult of these two fines, but you still want. Sonmin assured her that he would cope. The goddess knows that he returned after his death. The eyes of God are seen through the principle of cause and investigation. Each mortal is destined to die at birth. This is a law. If you overload the law of being, you become immortal, but you are said, even dead. You return to the past, began to live again. All existence as the causes of the investigation. This is natural, but for some reason you went around death, and in the process your soul carries a huge car. But this will not affect you while you are alive after death. You will suffer hundreds of millions of hours. But Sonmin did not care, because it would affect him only after death. Waking up, he saw Asogu in front of him. She looked very excited. She wanted to know what a fine he added to himself. It was a penalty for heat of dreams. The finish of meanings and abstract concepts is even stronger than the usual fines. The penalty of heat makes you feel constant one cold, even if you are near the fire. The cold did not leave. And the penalty for dreams, all memories from the earth, parents, horrors of childhood, haunts you. All of them showed the worst form, polluting dreams. To dream was no longer comfortable. The penalty deprived Sonmin's rest. Crazy bastard, said Soga. If you think about its achievement of martial arts, is great for its age, but it grows much slower, even with so many prohibitions that it has. He really has disharmony between talents and skills. It's true that he is not talented, but who is he then? Sonmin has only one goal. After meeting with the flame, he was angry, and therefore, he took on another fine. This is also that he can stand next to the guys who have unusual talents, amazing imagination. Soga realized that Sonmin had a really high goal. After all, she also has a goal. She wants to become the strongest in the world. Soga suggested teaching Sonmin high-speed technology, although in the past she refused him. She took out a book and showed him. It was a book about martial art called The Bestone Flight of the Soul. Seeing her, Sonmin was surprised because this technique is comparable with the technique of cultivating, amethyst cloud, and the highest technique. Even if Sonmin dies, he never gives up. That is why Soga offered her help, reminding that she is kind. The technique of a Boster flight has now become available. Higher technique of Heavenly Spear Samina. The first step is a mortal blow to the persecution of the soul. On Vig dodged, then there was still a blow. Higher technique of Heavenly Spear Sonmin. Fifth step. Fatal flash, but this blow was too weak for Vig. The view of life was very disappointed by the host. She thought that these 10 years of training went into an empty, and decided to pick up everything that she gave him. She destroyed his source of chi. Now he will not be able to use martial arts, and turning around left him. But Sonmin tried to continue the battle, waking up in the sweat, and crouching slightly catching his breath. Sonmin realized that it was just a dream. A girl magician came up from behind and asked who Vishji is. She thought it was his girlfriend. Went rumors that Sonmin added to more fines for himself. One of them was a fine for a ban on dreams. And the second was a fine for heat. She warned him that he would most likely die soon. Sonmin began to puke, but it was more likely not because of the fines, but because this girl magician approached him because it was very stinking from her. Scarlet, so called this magician, only wanted to help him, that the ghostly blade by Jun asked her not to turn to him. The boy asked them why they are here. They were here to help, because the dumb asked for them about it. Sonmin called her an older sister. Scarlet brought magic scrolls. All the Anomarians can learn magic. The next day, blind old man and Sonmin were ready to start sparring. Sonmin was very confident in himself. Having met face to face, they were ready. Scarlet taught him 4 types of magic skills. The first was mental cleaning. It helps to clear the mind of pollution by nightmares. The second, it was a magical skill. He could make you faster and stronger. It was quite useful when you had a fine of gravity. Sonmin could not defeat the old man. The third skill was restored. This tax restores strength, but its use excessively leads to exhaustion that it can be fatal. To withstand all these hellish trials, he had no choice. This time, he was able to hold out for 100 seconds is better than last time. But the host was uneasy. It was a heating fine. The elder began to press the spinning limbs of Sonmin with his fingers. Blood in his veins stirred. The boy was much better. The elder pressed on blood vessels but accelerate metabolism, so the boy was able to endure the heat of heat. Having finished sparring, the elder decided to go to the forest to engage in training. He said to protect himself to the bow because he does not want to look for himself a new sparring partner, so that there is no such help. Then Sonmin would most likely die for a long time. Lying on the floor, the boy thought, it is strange that after regression so many people began to help him. Because it was abnormal, people have become more friendly with him. Area in which he lived before, it was not so friendly. It was very, very strange. The old man called Scarlet, but he immediately learned her to an unbearable smell. A man warned that as soon as they get out of the mountain, she would burn him to the ground because she did not understand why he was so harsh with her. Because she simply did not wash a couple of days, every day, although slowly, but the boy is getting better in martial arts. Scarlet was surprised that the old man helped him because it was very atypical for him. But she also made magic scrolls for him too. It is clear why, but when she sees the boy, she has an irresistible desire to help him. Most likely in this life he was just lucky with friends and companions. 6 months later, holding a spear, the boy continued to train. Every day it was harder and harder. After an outcast after another training, the flame came up to him. He could not even think that Sonmin would last more than 6 months, but has passed for a whole year. But Sonmin ignored his words. The flame clearly did not like it. Approaching him, he noticed that he had a fine on his neck, but he only laughed, considering that it was the easiest fine among all the proposed. He thought that Sonmin would choose more stringent fines. Sonmin is tired of it, and he delivered a powerful blow right in the face. The Plam was pretty surprised, because Ponmi was a completely different person in comparison with what he was half a year ago. His parrying, holding and punching were very cleanly made. The speed technique that he learned from Soga helped him a lot. Even the larva can get there if they crawl for a long time, but still laughed because Sonmin reached so little with only 5 fines. Sonmin again tried to strike, but the play was intercepted by his spear. The play will be able to determine what Sonmin is said only by the movement of his lips. A host smiling told you that there was nothing to do, but he cannot look at him from above. But Sonmin continued to smile and say that he tried to kill him. The Plam hit him. Now Sonmin was lying on the floor like a slug and a flame mocked him. Apparently, despite the ban on murder, you can apply indirect injuries. The flame lit a spear tip with a blue flame. It was the technique of the Sword of Chi. He continued to mock Sonin. He knew that he could not learn the equipment even after 5 or 10 years. The world is unfair because everyone should work with all his might to learn something. But the flame can easily study this by looking only once. But Sonmin was not going to stop his training. This was very surprised by the young genius. There is no end of despair if he just continues to think that he has no talent. Someday the moment will come when Sonmin pierces the body of a young genius with a spear. Plan stood in a stupor from these words. His blue energy began to burn a tree more and more. He smiled, said that he would look forward to this day, to see how Sonmin gives up and cry. A month later, Ponman began to choose a new fine, and he chose a penalty. The penalty was still with that obstacle of the ears, or filled with terrible nose to which it is impossible to get used to. There were already 6 fines, even if every day Sonmin was almost on the verge, but he did not stop and continued to hone the skills of his spear, fend off, hold, and pierce. Higher technique of heavenly spears, technique cultivation of amethyst cloud, technique sparring with the old man, run with the soga, magic scrolls from scarlet. The stronger Sonmin became, the harder his body became. The taste of food was more disgusting. The dreams were more saturated. The strongest frost enveloped his body, and continuous sounds intensify in his ears. Sometimes it even helped him when the play came to laugh at him. Slowly, like Sluglik, Sonmin continued to improve. On one day, Sonmin saw the goddess of Mushi in front of him. She called his measurement. Turning around, she congratulated him on overcoming the test. The boy was surprised and angry what tests could be. Then the flame appeared. She explained to him that the existence of the play is the test. Tiksu, Scarlet, Doc by June, all of them trained on the mountain and then became very famous people. But no one has ever heard about the flame, why he did not become known if he is such a talent. It was still not clear why he never leaves the mountain. He uses his powerful talent as a test to bring pilgrims into despair. Everyone who was very talented looked at him and fell into despair. They turned their heads and left. Spnin, despite the unevenness, did not avoid him, but made it with the aim of his life. He moved himself with an increasingly harsh test. It was a very reckless way to solve problems. But Suma could not despair him in despair. The goddess liked the madness of the boy, but she warned him so that he would not reveal the personality of the plast. Otherwise she would feel the whole wrath of the goddess. Sonmin said that he would still continue to train on the mountain. The reward for the implementation of her test will be transferred to him when he leaves the mountain. She invited him to give her soul. Then she will give him the strength that he will not be able to earn even in 100 years of training. But Sonmin refused. Then he continued to make efforts to slowly progress. He really hated the word efforts. He has geniuses to different points of departure. No matter how much he try, he still does not have time for them. Well, to be a genius does not mean that you need to make efforts. In the end, he hated those who ignored his difference between what happened and because he did not simply attribute this lack of efforts. At the same time, he yearned for the word effort. How much in a past life he often hid and made little work. He had many fatal meetings. Now there is no justification that they have different departure points. When he lost his refuge, he had no choice how to go forward. But only now he began to work. From now on, he will make every effort to the very end. The goddess really liked the word effort. She turned around and said that she wanted to talk to herself. There are no coincidences in Eri. There is a reason for everything. Area calls for foreigners who have an advantage in the form of skills. But for what reason? The boy did not understand what was happening. Because the goddess turned and began to talk to herself. She definitely tried to convey something to him. This means that this information cannot be said to her, but she is trying to indirectly convey it. She continued to speak. If he returned, then this means that something will happen that will require his return. If he returned, then you need to be prepared to become a worthy regressor. There was some kind of sound in the void. The goddess at first did not understand what it was. Opening her eyes, she saw a crack. She laid it so that it was her territory. Asked him to retreat if he did not want war. The crack disappeared sharply. That it was all. Abo was at a loss. The goddess told him to return. He does not have much time left, so it is worth going and finishing his training. And the goddess returned him back, but he can stop all this. A few days passed. The sixth fine that he received was a sense of smell. It was terrible. The smell emanating from Scarlet continued to stimulate his nose. It is possible that the penalty for charm would not be so bad. While the woe was sitting and pondering all this information to him, Soga approached him. The tougher the penalty, the more reward. The bears had new fines taste and hearing. Compared to the fines that she transferred earlier, these were much more complicated for her. She turned to him, saying that he will leave this mountain soon. The bow became sad from this news. Soga actually did not need so many fines, since she is already a genius. She stayed on the mountain for 2 years and probably has already achieved her goals. The boy was even saddened and said that he would still remain on the mountain. Sogu was upset by this news. They did not promise each other what to ever see in this world. Soga worried that if she leaves the mountain, then he could die, as she would take fines and load himself. She has not yet finished teaching him technology, but she could not stay on the mountain either. The boy assured her so that everything would be fine. Thanks to her, he was able to hold out for so long and can now endure his weight. He thanked her, and they hugged tightly, and Soga left the mountain. Over time, everyone who knew Sonmin left the mountain. He is not used to feeling loneliness, although in a past life he was lonely and did not believe anyone, but now he knows that a person cannot live alone. With them withal, he was truly happy and alive. His heart has changed. An invisible wall collapsed in him. At that moment there was no smell, no weight, no nose. The feeling of freedom was fleeting, but now an eternity continued. An ordinary landscape for some reason looks different. After it has changed, the world has changed too. The summer of the cicada came to cry. 7 years later, Soga meet with Vig in the dungeon and she will kill her. To return the kindness that Soga made for him, he must save her. Cicada larvae have been spent 10 years in the ground to become cicades, and Sonmin has only 7 years to prevent disaster. But after 7 years, how much he can become strong, and whether he can do it. But there is no choice. He must thank the Sogu. Despite the fact that the level of martial arts rises daily, this is still not enough. He reduced his sleep and was more involved in the spear. There was a new fine soon. It was a penalty. The world has darkened. The only feeling that he can rely on this touch. A week later, he got used to it and began to move. The only thing that could hear in this black world is a nose. Some moment of time the nose began to be like the cries of cicades. To the sounds of cicades, he forgot about the stream of time and simply continued to wave his spear. The body began to automatically use martial arts. Now he is a larva, but will he be able to become a cicada? After crying a larva for a short period of time, they want to become cicadas. But Sonmin clearly wants more. Why did he regress me and who he wants to become? The new season has come. The wind temperature has changed. But it has not changed into everyday life. He still waved a spear. After a while, he turned to Mushi and said that he wanted to finish the pilgrimage. She heard him and removed all the fines from him. All senses returned. Now he can see and not hear heavy sounds and feel a terrible smell. Pay attention to the goddess. She clearly thought about something. She cannot decide what ward to give him. He spent on the mountain for 3 years overcoming a lot of work and withstanding all the fines. Few were able to withstand so many prohibitions and they quickly surrendered, or die. The goddess wanted to give him something worthwhile. She could not decide what, so she asked him. Sonmin wanted her to give him a talent for martial arts, but the goddess cannot do this. Then Sonmin wondered what he needed. After all, he will not be able to achieve his goal if it is not good enough. He has very little time. He should become stronger, but does not know what to do to become him. Then he asked to give what would help him. The goddess thought and said that the only thing he needed in this case this time, she will help him meet God time. She carried him a label and said to go to Drimmer and show this mark Dennis. The name of God is the time, and he will give him a test. His tests were much more complicated than on the mountain, so the fact that he gets on them only on him. Sonmin understood. This is exactly what he needs. Well, this was only the first reward. The second award will be recommendations for Reborn. The goddess waved her hand and an unknown man in a jacket appeared. He greeted the boy. His name was Brokernaville. He looked at Sonmin as a future member of the exchange. Having appreciated the young man, he considered him not qualified enough to become a member of the guild. The goddess insisted that he looked more carefully. Bowing his head, he apologized and looked again. He still considered him a worthy member of the guild. Once again, apologizing to the boy for making such a hasty decision, because he saw that his level of martial arts was not very high. But Sonmin objected that for his age he has a fairly good level. Reborn is a guild of intermediaries that performs what their customers wish. If the client requests an auction item or information will make this the best. They even had a Shaolin pill and the technique. This is Reborn. The goddess was also a member of this guild. The gods even collaborated with this guild. Then Neville held out his hand to conclude an agreement on cooperation. He had nothing to lose, therefore he would become a member of the guild. And then they entered into an agreement. This agreement now confirms that Spawnman has become a member of the guild. Also, the sign signing the contract was infected with one click of a finger. Changed the boy into normal clothes. After that, he deviated and said that if the boy needs his services, then just let his name call him. The goddess was glad that Spawnman accepted this gift. After all, becoming a member of the guild is most. Spawnman told that he was going to go to Bekhener. The goddess wished him good luck and asked not to forget about what she spoke to herself, and Spawnman hit the road. Passing the forest, he thought what the goddess was talking about. On the way he met various monsters. After 3 years of training on the mountain, he became a martial artist at the peak. The age of the whole body is now 18 years old. People might think that he is a genius. He was able to become a master of martial arts at the peak, only thanks to training and overcoming tests. But still ahead. Now his goal is Bekhener. He wants to become a mercenary. It is there that everything will begin. Magic armor of de Villemark found them in the dungeon of a black magician near the city. The mercenary from the rank received them by pure chance. The ability of armor was amazing. A mercenary who was a master of martial arts of the 3rd rank could become a master at the peak of martial arts. What will happen if the martial art master at the peak will dress this armor? Perhaps he will become a master at the highest peak of martial arts. Spawnman spent a lot of time on the mountain and therefore he cannot miss this opportunity. But first, he needs to prove himself as a mercenary. Approaching the guild of mercenaries, he turned to a man in a shirt that he wanted to become a mercenary, but he said that he was just a bartender and advised him to go upstairs. The local members of the guild laughed because they did not understand why the child wanted to become a mercenary, that the boy took the fork for one of the bunks in one motion. This was clearly surprised by the bartender. After all, he saw a plug of nourished chi and realized that the boy is a master of martial arts. Then he apologized to him and offered to sit down. His name was Byrne. He's a magician and the leader of the guild of a mercenary. But in his free days he works as a bartender. Spawnman knew about this, because in a past life he worked in this guild. Usually if a martial art master comes to the guild at the peak, he is given the position of the mercenary S rank. But for starters, they had to make sure that it was not just a guy who trained has no practice. They need a warrior and not an ordinary rogue. Then Byrne gave him the first task and said that another mercenary would go with him, so that it was not so difficult for him. If he completed the task, he will receive the qualification of the mercenary S. The next day, they and the mercenary went on a task. The mercenary who walked with him got the boy called him boring. This man calls people. He is a mercenary of the sun. In a previous life, Spawnman did not contact him, but he knew his name. He will watch how the boy copes with the task. His task was destroy. Ogre is one of the strongest monsters of Eri. The ogres have some resistance of magic, can the skin strong like steel. One of them was seen in the forest near the village, so the residents instructed the guilds to kill him. 2 mercenaries of the rank was enough to deal with the lake. There was only one strangeness because the forest was walking on the mercenaries was too small for the ogre. The height of the fingers is at least 3 meters and reach 5. He needs a lot of food. In this forest, it will be rude to fill its stomach. They notice the body of a bloodied deer, so only ogre is able to break the creature. But there were no traces that indicate that the ogre fed by him. Suddenly they heard a noise. Turning, they saw that the trees began to diverge. Looking at them, they ran in that direction. Ogre appeared from behind the trees, but he was not like ordinary ogre. It was an ogre chimera. Chimera is a magical creature created in order to become an ideal look. Each living creature inevitably has restrictions, but it can be circumvented with an artificial connection with other types. So even a chimera was created on the basis of a low-rank goblin. It will become a rank due to the fact that the risk increases. What if the base was a garden? Even 2 muckers of the rank of ranking. Ogre pulled out a tree and waved to the mercenaries, but they managed to return. Then he struck a fist. Spawnman dodged and used the technique of incorporeal flight of the soul. Liut fled and hid behind a tree. The boy was surprised that he became so fast. The penalty for heaviness no longer presses on him, and in this case, he went on the attack. The technique of a Boster flight from the heart is the second step Dance of the Shadow. He ran in the hand of the fence. He inflicted this blow. Higher technique of Heavenly Spear, a mortal blow to the persecution of the soul. It will be difficult, but you need to continue. Blows do not inflict damage too. Even after a spear hit, there was no scratch left on it. People hesitated because there would be a double reward for the capture of this monster. Although the ogre did not feel the blows, it was too late to run. The boy handed the mercenary so that he did not get into a fight. Sonman, although he understood that the chances are small, but I felt that I could do something. Higher technique of heavenly spear second step. Lightning stroke shared space. Well, even this blow did not leave a scratch on him. Teeple stood aside. He wanted to join but understood that this would not change anything. But the boy was not going to give up, and he wore still strokes with a spear of chi. Although it was ineffective, he noticed that the eyes of the ogre were not protected, and stuck the spear right in his eye. Lud was surprised. He blinded him and struck the worst place. How this guy at such a small age can fight like that? But ogre took out a spear from the eye, but now he knew his weak place. Ogre quickly restored his eye. It was impossible. They realized that it was a chimera ogre mixed with the troll. It has the ability of a troll to regenerate. There is almost no chance to win from such regeneration. The boy wondered what he should do now. But I did not stop him in any way, because there are things that he needed to do. Therefore, he cannot die in this place. He remembered that he was taught by VIG 3 main stages of a spear, and it was a good chance to use them here. He has an unbeaten impact hatch. Then he rattled his second blow, and inflicted a series of blows. He spaced his hand in a whirlwind, and dodged the attack. It is time to pierce. And he pierced him in the leg, having broken his joint through. At least there was a rat with a broken leg, but nevertheless struck a blow from which the bow dodged. It was necessary to understand how much he would need time to restore the joints. Well, it was no longer important because he pierced again. There was a chance to kill the fence. It was necessary to do this before the moment he regenerates. He will not be able to regenerate if there is a spear inside the composition. The bow hoped that it was so. However, he will not be able to move either his feet or with his right hand. I had to try to hit again. Higher technique of heavenly spear second step. Lightning stroke shared space. Well, while it was too slow, you need to do it faster because he no longer feels heaviness. The obstacles that he heard on the mountain of Mushi disappeared. He no longer wants to be a larvae anymore. He was reborn on the mountain of Mushi. Being a cicada is too simple. He doesn't want to regret anymore that he had lived one life, but it is still unknown what will happen at the end of his path. You need to always be ready for the coming, until you reach your goal. Wesson Pot he received a farm. Lud was shocked. Who are you? To hell with this. That the boy himself did not know who he was, but in one he was sure. That he is now not a larvae. Lud smiled and considered him a definitely interesting person. The sound of cicades has stopped. Coming to the tavern looked at them in surprise. Neville. They dragged the corpse of the Hiremura with them. Winning the Heimer is the achievement of SS rank. Well, the bow was enough and S rank. Reward for conquering the Chimera Ogre 27 million nari and a mercenary badge of S rank. The corpse was handed over for research, for which 20 million were received. A total of 47 million Lud gave his share because he did not participate in battle. Walking along the streets, Salman reasoned what to do with such an amount. In a last life, he received a maximum of 1 million. At this time, the mercenary and Neville discussed the bow. People were delighted with his skills and advised Byrne to look himself. Byrne presented his staff and his head Luda. He saw the battle of the boy and the ogre. His skills are definitely higher than his current rank. Xion will be very interested in him. Standing in a dark alley, he called Neville and innocently appeared to him from black matter. He greeted the boy and found out for what purpose he called him. To achieve his goals, he needed a new weapon. Because in a battle with the huge he could not even break through his skin. I would not want to stay in a situation where the main problem will remain weapons. So he asked for his new weapon. Neville found out what budget the boy has. But even the money that he had little to get good weapons. After all the blacksmiths to collaborate with the guild are considered to be blacksmiths of the highest rank, so their work is well paid. Neville invited the boy to sell his soul. It is possible that there are options that would suit the bow, and then Neville invited the boy to meet a blacksmith and discuss further actions. With a wave of his finger, he began to open the portal. He provided space for conversation with the blacksmith. The boy went to the portal, and saw the girl in front of him. Her name was Selgiris. She asked why he is waiting for why he does not come in. The oddity was that it was a dark elven and not a gnome. He introduced himself and said that he needed a new spear, and showed what form he needs. The girl immediately determined that it was a spear in the style of Central Plains. I asked to show what a spear style he used. After all, the bow was surprised by the master of martial arts, never demonstrates his art to anyone. She needed to know his style to make a spear. Depending on the martial arts, parts can change strongly. The girl lowered her head. After all, Sunmin refused to show her art. Although she is not a gnome, she is already 400 years old, of which 350 she has been engaged in blacksmithing. 350 years she stubbornly improved her abilities and is sure that it is not worse than gnomes. Sunmin remembered that he was also not talented. The girl turned away, thought he would be against her to cooperate. But Sunmin agreed to show her artificial, why the girl was very surprised. After all, usually masters of martial arts leave without trusting her. All this was due to the fact that she, like him, stubbornly strove for her goal. Girls liked him right away, so she will do it better for him than he has a budget. She hopes that he will become a real customer. It will take several months to make weapons, but for now it remains only to wait. Sunmin sat down to meditate. He realized that his battle with the huge was his first real battle. Since he recognized many things, now he needs to completely rewrite them and adjust them to himself. His instinct evolved into the skill after training on the mountain. This sensation allows him to move independently even if he does not understand this. His experience in the mountains improved the instinct, but his other feelings, on the contrary, weakened, and there was an imbalance. After a while, the Guild of Mercenaries, Burn, offered him a new task. Well, the bow refused. He was wondering what happened to the body. If this is a chimera, then someone created it, and therefore, a body was sent to the Guild of Magicians. It is interesting that in a past life there was no Himmer's ogre, or no one took the task, or the mercenary took and the garden was defeated. Most likely, the owner of the dungeon, who will be found for 6 months later, created a chimera. Perhaps in a last life he received chimeras, everything he wanted. The bow wanted to see the body of the fence, and went to the Guild of Magicians. There he was met by an incomprehensible man with long hair and in a white robe. His name was John, and he was a black magician. Around became the remnants of the ogre, introducing himself as a magician, because the bow was also a Korean. At least the probability that they were from Korea from one measurement very small. Nevertheless, Max was still glad, because I have not seen the Koreans for a long time. Taking the bow's hand, he felt something, but pretended that nothing happened. Sunmin came to see the body. Since the future has been changed, he needed more information to get armor. Max agreed to tell what he found out. Since the ogre was not so many information, but it was clear that it was a high level of magic. The black magician who created this chimera, someone from a number of great magicians. The chimera was sewn up. This was done in order to check his power. That is why in the forest he broke a deer and did not eat. But all these words are not important. After all, the cause of the investigative laws are twisted around the bow. The magician found out, revealing the soul of the bow. Well, if he was in his place, he would have most likely desperate and went crazy. All because after death he will suffer forever. The magician asked the bow to tell why this is happening to him, saying that he will tell about him what he does not know. He switched an oath by Mana that he would not tell anyone what he heard. A man who will break the oath will die. The bow told the magician that he is a regressor. It is for this reason that the investigative laws around him are distorted. But the magician knew something else about the bow, that he is special. Not only the causal laws around him are distorted, but he cannot tell him. After all, if he says he will die, the only thing he could say that the life of a bow did not belong to him. Sunmi was clearly surprised by this news. Since the magician needed time to restore, he said goodbye to the bow and left. Sunmin remembered what the goddess was talking about. Leaving the Guild of Magicians called him by a girl. Turning around, he saw in front of him the old familiar was Scarlet. At first he did not recognize her because he did not stink of her. But the blow to the face immediately returned the memories. She was glad to see an old acquaintance and asked why he went to the Magic Guild. Just don't say that you talked with this crazy bastard. All black magicians are terrible, but this type of the most terrible of those I know. But she was sure that the bow could stand up for herself. So much time has passed and finally they met. But the girls had to rush. She called him somehow to go to her laboratory and left. The bow only managed to wave his hand and on the road. Now the main secret remains. what the goddess Mushi had in mind, and that this could not say the black magician Jonhen. There was also a strangeness that people who only do not know me offer help to me. Sonnin was sure that something was happening, but it is not yet clear what exactly. A lot of thoughts are spinning a bow in his head, but now there is something to concentrate on what is happening right in front of him. As an option, there was a two-headed troll hunt, a reward for its conquering 60 million Eri. Having entered the guild, he was met by people. This time, he will go with Ponman on the task. Tabo smiled joyfully. He was looking forward to their joint sortie. During his second life, he realized that people could not live alone and stopped repelling people who were approaching him. Liad was a pretty good friend. Tabo's heart, blurred by long hours of practice, was comforted when he traveled with him. 3 months passed as they started to travel paired. Having received a reward of 50 million, Liad suggested go into Thump. Interrupted them and said that someone wants to see the bow. He wanted to see Xion, leader of the mercenaries of the crown. The guys fell into a stupor. The leader of the mercenaries of the crown, the large building of more than 100 people, is made one of the 3 SS rank mercenaries. He is a master at the peak of martial arts that could use 100 steps of mystical fist Shaolin. He is a man whose bow knew from a past life. Having entered his office, Sonmin introduced himself. In front of him was a large sinewy man with a cigarette in his mouth. Although Xion was also without class, Sonmin felt his strength. Xion knew that a guy at a young age has such abilities, and he invited him to enter the mercenaries of the crown. He was impressed with the boy who defeated the ogres and offered him the post of captain. He understood that the guy might not accept his deal, so he took out a small box. It had a small pill of transformation. This is the elixir of the Shaolin Temple. If you use it, you can get a large amount of internal energy. He was ready to give him a pill, but there was only one condition. It was necessary to sign a contract. This contract obliged to obey all the orders of Xion. Although this is not a magical contract, but if someone violates it, of the consequences no less. And also he had to tell Xion about all the martial arts that we owns. The guy asked if someone had such conditions. In another way, the elite mercenary in this city cannot become. After some time, at the table, the guy told Luda that he refused this contract. I was not ready to sign such a slave contract. People completely agree with him. But now it's better to leave the city to the guy. Xion does a lot of suspicious things. Every mercenary in this city is somehow under his control. The end of the chapter. 3 months later, with Sonmin came to the blacksmith for his spear. This is because of him more time than needed, but she made it. The main metal used was mithril, while black iron was metal for the external structure. They carry out manual and chi, so it should be much easier to use their equipment. Sonnin was pleasantly amazed by a spear. Out of nowhere, Navil appeared. He noticed that the guy clearly liked the blacksmith. Materials used in this spear is very expensive. Although the bow gave her additional funds, most of these funds were used only for materials. In fact, she made a spear almost free. Neville guessed why she did it. The bow has a strange charm that makes people help him, but added that most likely exaggerates. Having bowed, he disappear. It was not surprising that he thinks so, because the guy already knows about it. The first time it became noticeable even on the mountain, but then he thought that it was just luck. But still there is something inside him. What makes people help him? Then it turns out that the kindness of all these people was fictitious. Not having time to change his mind about the guy was called by people. Well, if these suspicions are true, then friendship with people turns out to be fake. But Liad encouraged him, saying that he was always with him. Dabo remembered the ray in which it was possible to get armor. His fears that the future had changed were confirmed because he killed the ogre. The guild began to search for a black magician. The dungeon was discovered 3 months earlier than it was in his previous life. The second that has changed is the mercenaries of the crown. Due to the fact that in a past life they were on another mission, they could not participate in this expedition, but now they participate. And also time has moved by 3 months. Stood at the meeting in front of the entrance of the dungeon. To him behind, the people came up. For a long time they did not see each other. Xion advised the guys to be careful. Since it was very dangerous in the dungeon, he hinted that something could happen to them. And with the whole detachment they moved towards the dungeon. Liad realized that he threatens them with death in the midst of a dungeon. 3 months have passed since the bow left Mushimushka. That there was no progress in his skills to become stronger. He needed armor. The raid was attended by 27 people, 1 SS rang for South Rang and 12A rang, as well as the mercenaries of the crown. Even the leader of the guild of mercenaries joined. Liu Du assured the guy that if someone is growing up on them, he uses equipment and a spiritual sword. Although Luda had no reason to join this raid, perhaps he joined the sake of Sonmin. And the Wo was grateful to him, because he would spoil his relationship with Sen even more. But there was no time to score his head. The head of the guild called out to be ready for a raid. He made a motivating speech. He said that everyone remains on their feet and take care of everything that they meet in the way. So time has come to go down to the dungeon, and with the whole crowd they rushed into the inside of the dungeon. And at first everything was quiet. Avant-garde of mercenaries are ranked Chunchul. He is a master of external martial arts that allowed him to make his body firmly like a boulder. Despite all his long workouts and his body was torn to pieces like tofu, flew towards the comrades who followed him. His body was cut in half. The head of the mercenaries was clearly at a loss. They were expected by a long night. The end of the chapter. There were chimeras inside. But Xian did not blink and his eye, seeing that his comrade was broken in half. A crustacean chimera crawled out, but Xian cut it with a mystical fist. Smiling, he turned towards the guy. The boy understood that in case of a battle with him, he had no chance. But it was impossible to be distracted by the chimera's puzzle because of all the angles. In his past life in this dungeon it was empty and there were no chimera. If now there are chimeras, then the question is whether the owner of the dungeon remains here. Turning around, the guy realized that they had a lot of losses. The corpses of his comrades were scattered throughout the dungeon. Was it possible to continue the raid with so many losses? The squad of the mercenaries of Xian did not suffer losses. Only the mercenaries of the guild were injured. The course of 1 hour after entering the dungeon of the raid team lost 11 mercenaries of the rank, and among the survivors there remained only 1 hunter and a rank of crown that did not belong to the mercenaries, an independent hunter, Tan Nisiak. She called the leader of the guild. She understood that her whole team was defeated and it was impossible to continue the raid. The head of the guild could not cancel the raid, since the main forces of the hunters of the rank and SS of the rank are still alive. There should be no further problems. He invited her to go back, but she understood that she could not protect herself on the way back. And so she agreed to go further. There was no more chimera on the way. Perhaps these monsters who attacked mercenaries at the very beginning were in order to win the time, and the owner of the dungeon was able to flee. The head of the guild asked everyone not to lose vigilance. One of the mercenaries noticed something. It was a wooden door. The head of the guild checked her for the presence of traps. It turned out to be an ordinary door. Inside there was an ordinary library. Since it was a large area of the guild, he said that everyone would look carefully around and offered to divide and look around. Sonmin remembered this place. He remembered the story of the mercenary who received armor, and that he wandered for an hour by the dungeon until he found the door. And at the entrance to the door inside there was a huge library. It was necessary to touch any of the books to open a secret entrance. Debo began to carefully sort through the books. Turning to one of the books in front of him opened the entrance to the dungeon. He knew that there was armor below, but not he had time to go down there as Xian noticed him. He found out how the guy found this passage. It was a random find, Sonmin answered. Xian smiled, clearly something. And suddenly the Shaolin was blowing, but the guy was able to dodge, which was very surprised by Xian. Since he could not recruit him, there was only one option to get rid of the guy. Everyone dispersed to explore the library, so no one could interfere with him. But then people appeared behind, and he rushed at Xian with rage. But he received a powerful blow. He flew off at the end of the dungeon. Xian only smiled at Luda's attempt to stop him. The chances of defeating him are definitely low, especially if his mercenaries join him. Sonmin understood this, so he took Luda. He ran down the steps. Magic armor is the only chance to defeat Xian. And finally reaching the bottom, they saw armor. Sonmin ran to them, and people turned and decided to detain Xian. Seeing Xian, he ran into him, but he pierced his body with a fist. Shaolin. Liud was lying on the floor and showing no signs of life. Sonmin was furious and rushed at Xian. You lived in this world without class, as I also should know how this damned world functions. You can't trust anyone. Even the garbage that is slowly growing in the end may betray you. All the blows that Satman did not were much damage to Xian. He easily blocked them, and striking Shaolin's hit the guy flew off the wall. But he managed to block him thanks to good weapons. Xian came up and took the spear. He was surprised because the spear was made from mithril. Sanmin lay on the floor, felt that the armor began to attract to him. Armor began to stick to his body. With a powerful surge, she threw back Xian. Putting on the armor with Sanmin appeared before him. He was shrouded in black energy. Bows began to go blood. It looks like the armor did not work. He thought that he would receive the power of the armor, but something went wrong. His internal energy and physical abilities have not changed at all. In any case, Xian cannot win with these armor. Suddenly a dark essence appeared behind them and blocked the blows of Xian. She told that the contact of the seven was not established. In addition to the whole soul of the guy was knocked down from the course. The sixth feeling of the guy began to scream frantic. He will be an excellent offering. It makes no sense to fight this. The remaining mercenaries rushed into a secret passage to the sounds of struggle. The head of the mercenaries saw the dark essence. It was a lich. He ordered everyone to immediately run away since the lich was very dangerous. But the lich struck a powerful energy that did not leave a chance to burn. Mercenaries at burn die, tried to escape, but the passage was already closed. No one could come here if the lich did not allow it. He has a good mood today. This appeared much more interestingly to the idea than the ogre chimera. Magic chains enveloped Sanmin. The day is not the day, and all the prayers are fulfilled. The battle ended quickly. The black magician killed everyone, including a dozen mercenaries of the SS rank, Burnout, who was cut in half in front of the great magician, and his body rolled down the floor of the dungeon, and even Xian was easily immobilized. Sanmin thought that everything would be different in this life. He thought he was no longer a larva or cicada. Apparently, he still remained a larvae. The guy woke up. In front of him was a dark lich. It was his personal workshop. He certainly tried to break out of the chains, but his strength will not be enough to break them. And then he personally said that he would like to be a woman. On how much they are able to accomplish a feat that many alchemists have not been able to achieve in his entire life, which is why he tried all kinds of ways to become a woman. But in the end he failed. He despaired in magic and sacrificed his soul to find immortality, because he could find some answers if the time was on his side. And in the end, he found his answer. Even if he cannot give birth to life, he can create it. The guy was struck by the story of the dark magician. The guy he met in the past was a monster with whom he could do nothing. If he used such a person with spoiled karma as an offering, it might be able to come closer to the realization of my dreams. Staying closer, he put his bony hand on his face, and they moved some kind of dimension. There was a large red eye in this dimension, and the magician offered the soul of a guy to him. But the eye refused the offering, and returned them back his measurement. Then he personally rushed to the guy with the question of who he was. If his soul took the king of demons of fear, his soul with spoiled karma has great value, but why it was rejected? The dark magician decided to see his memories. All he knew for this and past life. After a while, Sanmin woke up. The personal has already left. It became easier for him when he discovered that he was still alive. But then he heard a loud noise in his ears. The sounds of cicadas that disappear after he defeated the Fensheimer returned. Over time, he was able to move. This was not because of his life experience, but because of his willpower as a third-rate mercenary in his previous life, where he fought for survival, no matter what. The promise that he made his friends not to die. He got used to such a situation from the moment he returned to the past. Regret, shame, self-torture. It was all that he could feel. Suddenly he heard a voice that it was a transmission of sound or telepathic magic. He asked who talked to him on telepathy. Did an unknown voice introduce himself? His name was Lloyd, the master of the Golden Tower of Magicians, and now he is far underground from the place where you are now. The guy remembered information about his past life, because this Lloyd disappeared at a certain moment. He asked the guy for help. He was seriously wounded and could not move, so he asked Smin that he brought him out. But is it safe there? And how Sanmin could understand that Loi is telling the truth, but he saw Manhwa and said that if he called him, he thanked heavily. The guy thought agreed, and he went down to the archmage. Before him, he saw a wounded man in a golden robe, and there were traces of a big battle around. On the floor, he also saw the corpse of Xian, but now there was no time to help the magician. He asked him to get him out of the dungeon. and also destroy the black heart that hung in the air in the corner of the dungeon. This heart was made a dark lich, therefore, it is very dangerous to destroy it. Sonmin waved and hit a spear right in the heart. But something went wrong. It was not destroyed. It began to absorb into the body of Sonmin. The black heart was now inside him. The end of the chapter. A few hours before I received the heart, Preskin's lich was exhausted by leaving this place. Lich used on a guy a type of magic that destroys the human mind and extracts his memory. But magic was somehow reflected. Another magic worked perfectly on it. But the magic reading memory was reflected. Even the King of Demon of Fear abandoned his soul. Lich received too much damage and used too many mana for these spells. Entering the dungeon, he saw 3 lying mercenaries who were still alive. They will help to restore him Manu. He began to suck out life energy out of them. Now he fully replenished his mana. He knew that one of them was pretending to be sleeping. It was Xian. He was able to free himself from magic chains. The personally did not plan to kill him just like that, for his soul was another fate. At this time, the Archmage entered the dungeon. He knew the personality of Preskin well, and noticed that he received huge damage from magic. He wants to destroy his body and put in a vessel of vitality. Xian was happy to see the Archmage. After all, now they will be able to defeat the Lich together. But he was too weak to combat the lice. Therefore, the Archmage advised him to retire and not interfere. Personally build a huge stream of mana around you. Loi did not understand what he was doing. It was the result of his long research. Supreme Being. A girl with black hair appeared from the stream. It has not yet been completely completed by the heart, and the physical body is not ready yet. But he had prepared just the heart that steamed in the air. That the Archmage was little worried. He began to build his stream of yellow energy and directed her to the Lich. That the girl was reflected in one wave of his flow. The Archmage was furious because his magic was scattered. This girl was called Fresh, and she was hungry. Noticing that Xian is in the corner, she ran up and pulled out his heart. This is how the captain of the most powerful guild of mercenaries died, who was a master at the peak of martial arts. His heart was eaten, and he did not even have a chance or opportunity to give any resistance. What happened after was pure madness. The Archmage was in a stupor from what he saw. That the girl only silently ate his heart. After that, the battle continued. The Archmage used all his magic mana on the girl, and after that the press ran away with her. It was a story about what happened before Spmin woke up and rescued the Archmage, and later destroyed that dark heart. That the Archmage did not see what really happened, since he fainted. Sonmin smiled, understanding his body now black heart. Loi thanked the guy and promised a reward. It was an empty form from the Archmage in which he himself could write what he wanted. Well, since he did not know what he needed yet, he retained the form for the future. Preskin was the master of the Black Tower, but due to the fact that he violated the prohibitions, an order for his murder was given, and for 10 years of persecution, he finally met him during a random raid. But in a previous life, he may have died in this dungeon because at that time he was just gone. The one who initially had to die now live due to regression, and the one who should be alive now die. Sonmin was a frog in the well. The peak of his life in this world was Xian. But now many other monsters have appeared that could easily kill him. He thought it was a sky, but it was just a well cover. There is always a higher goal. I wonder what level has already reached VIG. If you admit, he was just a larva, he already knew about it when he was on the mountain. But did not despair. Walking around the city, someone called him. It was the black magician Kim Jong-hyun. He immediately appreciated his armor, because she was a unique artifact, and asked to look at her. Here's what he knew about it: is the armor is a type of forced contract instrument that connects the transcendental king of demons or the god of demons. This is an evil armor that misses the official conclusion of the contract and makes his user conclude a slave contract. Potential to become a master at the peak of martial arts. But if this person wears demonic armor, his potential will be awakened and he will be able to become a master at the highest peak of martial arts. But after he dies, his soul will belong to the king of demons. All this will happen regardless of what the user wants. Nobody did not happen with a host even after he put on demonic armor, and it is very interesting. There are 2 options why this happened. Or there is no growth potential. Or the guy concluded a contract with the owner, who is even stronger than the owner of the demonic armor. The magician thinks that this is most likely the second option. If the contract does not work, then it can be used. Several useful types of magic are imposed on it. It can also be worn as an ordinary bracelet. If you send mana or internal energy during the battle, it will again become an armor. The guy said that under the skin he tried to offer him the king of demons. Then the magician said that the king of demons of fear is a transcendental creature of a very high level. He can be a cut of the fear of anyone who just below the level just looking at him. The fact that the guy was able to save himself, even after he met him, or that even such a strong one he could not accept his soul as an offer. This means a lot, well, until it is better for him not to know about it. The guy also told the magician that something strange fell into his body. Preskin conducted research on the end form of life. If the heart is the end of his desires, then this can give strength even more than demonic armor. The magician apologized, but he could not give him information anymore. If this is God, then he will have more answers. Sonmin remembered what the goddess Mushi told him. The god of time Dennis can answer his question. The magician said that he could call him at any time, and he will answer his question. Leaving his house, the guy thought that he learned a lot from this conversation, but there were even more questions. He already thought how he would go to Dreamer to God, but then a blow flew from behind. It was Scarlet. She was angry with him because he again contacted this dark magician. Although he had questions, Scarlet, it was little interested in. And then the guy asked how old she was. She was clearly furious from such a question. She is definitely older than it looks. She knew that Sonmin was the only one who survived in the raid. He told her about his plans to go to Dreamer. And Scarlet offered to go there together. She also had things to do in Dromori. It was a good idea to go there together. You could even talk to someone on the way with someone. But in fact, this idea was not very idea of traveling with Scarlet. She is a genius who uses the magic that she knows only she alone. Later she created the receiver of the receiver and will become a master of the Red Tower of Magicians. For him there was a great opportunity to make friends with a person like she. But there is still one thing left, but all the people of whom he met were very friendly to him. That if all these people are friendly to him, but to what is behind him, and if the connection that he stopped before is no more than a lie, what was the death of Luda and why he took part in the raid? There are no evidence, only one guesses, which is why he would say behind him on this trip. If something goes wrong, then the same fate will wait for her as Ludo. From that moment he cannot forgive himself the death of Luda. When he saved Lo and received a black heart, he also searched the corpse of Xion. People like him definitely keeps all precious objects with him. For finding a guy surprised him. He had a small and large pill of transformation, as well as the technique of martial art of Shaolin. All of them were very valuable piluses. Regardless of his thoughts, he needs to become stronger and he took one of the pills. Now he needs to circulate his energy. He sat on the bed and began to meditate. Well, having spent about an hour, he did not feel any changes. Usually when someone needs a small pill of transformation, the internal energy of the pill should quickly enter the inside. Perhaps this pill is not real, but suddenly a pink glow appeared in the stomach. Its internal energy increased in geometric progression. The pill was not fake. Usually when a person absorbs pills, the internal energy that was in it breaks out. And after that, you need to strain all this energy to make it his own. But the host did not have to do anything. All the energy is absorbed on his own. It is usually difficult to absorb part of the energy, but he absorbed it all. It is possible that the cause was a dark heart. Then the guy remembered that he had another pill. It was a large pill of transformation. He took it in his hands. And he also accepted her. He was able to absorb the energy of both a small pill and big. Now he is almost at the highest peak of martial arts. Perhaps the heart really absorbed everything, but no one could know for sure. The one thing was clear, that now he was able to solve the lack of internal energy that he had before. Now it remains to solve something with the books of Shaolin. It seems he has the idea of what to do with them. Having met with Scarlet, he said he wants to go to Breton instead. His plan was to return Shaolin's books back to the temple that is in Breton. Scarlet suggested studying them and then sell them, but there were many sellers of martial arts on the market. Therefore, it would be difficult to sell them. He hoped that if he returned and would receive a reward to the temple. All this was done so that Scarlet did not go with him, because he had things to do in Dromora. And now Sonmin goes to the temple. Scarlet did not recede so easily and said that she also has business in Breton. Yes, the truth was that she had no business in any of the cities. She just wanted to travel and see the world. She really liked training in the mountains, and after the trip, she is going to settle in a good place. But this time she wanted to live without fines that were on Musha Mountain. So now they will definitely go on a trip together. They agreed that they would go in a week as it takes time to prepare. Later in the evening, walking in the park, the same girl who was in the dungeon came out on them. They obviously did not expect her to see her here. She said that when she met a guy, she felt something. She had some strange sensations. Some time ago, Lich sat on a stone and rested after a long battle with Loi. Apparently the word genius is used for people like it. If the Lich did not have time to wake the girl, most likely he would have died. At this time, the girl sat and examined the stone. Lich tried to call her, but she did not react in any way. Apparently he is not yet fully controlled, because he aroused her in a hurry. She did not listen to his order. Well, she will not be able to harm him, because the seal of obedience was imposed on her. He tried to force him to return back to the cave to pick up the heart that he hatched for many years. This time she seemed to even listen to him, and quickly ran away, but personally was not sure that she ran to the dungeon. She goes there where Anne wants to. The difference, Anne asked her to go to the dungeon, but she felt some strange sensation and moved in his direction. Her heart beats very much. Seeing him, she felt a pleasant sensation. She released her tentacles into him. Well, for some reason, he stood as if dug and did not even try to dodge. It's good that Scarlet was nearby and repulsed the attack. His dark heart unexpectedly began to beat a lot. Could not say what kind of child it was and why he has such power. Sonnin told her that this is a chimera of the track. She killed Xion in one moment and the Archmage Lloyd barely survived after the battle with her. Although he fought simultaneously with two, tassing the energy of the bracelet that was his armor. Sonnin could not allow Scarlet to die, and then the bracelet turned into armor. The girl did not stop and continued to attack with tentacles. The guy tried to dodge her blows. It was more difficult for us each time. Her attacks were very unusual and fists are much strong. If the guy had not increased his internal energy with the help of a pill, then everything would be much more problematic. But Scarlet told him to leave, and inflicted a powerful fiery blow. Although the girl tried to block the blow, but the magic passed through her protection. She had a very strong resistance of magic. But since Scarlet used unusual magic, and her secret, the girl had no resistance to her. But nevertheless, having hardly repulsed the attack, she was able to apply a counterattack. It was a technique of 100 steps of the mystical fist Shaolin, used by Xion. According to Loi, the girl ate the heart of Xion. Apparently she is able to absorb the abilities of those whose heart it ate. She was really a monster. Sonnin could no longer fend off her attacks. She was only interested in one question: who is this guy and why he attracts her so much? And she will not stop until she recognizes it. And then a fiery blow from Scalab followed. She was even a little injured but continued to beat. The girl's face was burned. I was not going to stop on Scarlet. The girl in a fit of rage wanted to throw out her power on Scarlet, but could not budge, since her arms grew from the ground and her legs covered. It was the magic of Scarlet. Well, the girl with a powerful stream of energy torn her legs. Flying away quickly raised new ones and moved back into battle. No one understood where the girls got such abilities for regeneration. Only working together will they be able to defeat her. You just need to wait until her mana evaporates. Having created a powerful flow of energy, she completely restored her mana, and the bloodied battle began. Trying to somehow damage the girl Sonmin was injured. I had to change and he changed. Also changing the world around you. He became so on Musha's mountain, because he dreamed of heights that he would never reach. The larva should only crawl. If one step is not enough, then dozens or hundreds of steps need to be taken, but he could not, because he was satisfied with only one step. The truth is that he left the mountain, not only because he wanted to get demonic armor. It was because he hit the wall and this wall was too high for him. In the end, he just wanted to choose a lighter path. Get demonic armor, but the price was paid for this decision. It was a huge. You need to deal with this. But he chose to run away. You can't do this. The heavy weight of the spear of which he did not feel so, as well as static noses of cicades. He wanted to stand next to Vig, and change your fate. And therefore you cannot dwell on the achieved. He had too big a dream for a simple larvae. Now is not the time to die. In this case, only one step can be all that he deserves. Well, you can't stop, and you need to take these steps, step by step. And with a spear filled with chi energy, he delivered a powerful blow to the girl's fist. This powerful blow destroyed her magic. This blow spent almost all of its inner energy. Scarlet was shocked by what he saw. The girl was injured. Crowning, she named her name. Her name was Ain. The guy wanted to finish her off, but Scarlet stopped him. The whole girl cried in the blood and ran away deep into the forest. Waking up in bed, the guy saw Scarlet in front of him. That I read the book. She was delighted that he woke up and said that he was in the village nearby, because after the battle with Thana he turned off. It was examined by the doctor, as well as Scarlet used a potion to heal the external wounds. But Sonmin did not feel any stiffness in motion. It was strange because he had a lot of wounds and broken bones. He lay unconscious for 3 days and was able to regenerate. It is possible that it was the effect of a black heart. Scarletta watched him again, and did not find any scratches or scars. She knew that he obviously did not agree on something. An example was that girl monster. When he met her, he clearly knew something. Well, for some reason, I hid it. Yes, he told her about the black heart that he absorbed. Now it became clear to her why he went to that psycho Kim Jong-henu. The guy was wondering why she did not abandon him, because it was only his battle. He was a goal. She could die, but did not run away. She told him why she did not leave him. When she was the youngest, before she became so sexy and was only a damn cute child, the war began. She burned everything that was so expensive in her path, high city, and all the people important in her life. It was difficult for her to get used to the void in her heart, which is why she did not get closer to anyone. Since everything happened before her eyes, she could not leave the guy alone. Even when she was in the balance of death, her best technique was hidden in such cases. In the expression on the guy's face, she guessed that he loves to travel alone because she was afraid that people would die nearby. And she gave him advice. At least the advice was also banal, but extremely important. If he does not want to lose important people, then he should become stronger. Having reassured the guy, she left, saying that he was going to, because tomorrow they go to Breton. The guy liked her advice. He knew that he should become stronger. At the last moment, what was released from his spear was enhanced energy. He needs to stop thinking about useless things and becoming stronger. After a while, they arrived in Breton and Scarlet. Scarlet was first in the city of Central Plains. She offered not to go to Shaolin right away, but to rest a little and go to eat. Entering the local tavern, they could not decide what to take them for a long time because they never tried the food of the Central Plains. Local citizens watched them very closely. The guys felt it. As soon as they went, everyone looked at them from head to toe. It was impossible not to feel. All this attention was because of Sonmin. When a martial artist reaches the highest level, his essence changes, causing his vast reserve of internal energy to be invisible to others. Sonmin corresponded to one of the criteria of energy volume, but did not fit others. He has not yet become a full-fledged higher master of martial arts. His internal energy beat over the edge and was very attracted to excess attention. Here someone's scream came from the second floor. He was a man in a white robe. He was clearly dissatisfied with the statements of Scarlet. Also, I didn't be silent, the game would have answered him. He was clearly narcissistic, so he continued to be rude to the girl. He did not understand with whom he communicates and therefore could run into big troubles. Nevertheless, he was already furious from the girl's statements. He threatened with his strength to her, and from the second floor he rushed at her with a sword. He was a martial artist of about the first class. It is not clear why he was imposed on this fight. But then something flew into him. A man called them behind. The man was clearly surprised that this mercenary tried to attack the enemy, is clearly stronger than him, so he cut him out with 1 coin. It was Namgan Hyven, the rising star of the Namgan clan, the swordsman dragon. It was the clan in which there are many strong martial artists. Hyven asked to sit down at the table. Sitting at the table, he began to inspect the guy intently. He wanted to know the guy's age. Upon learning that he was only 18, he was surprised because he was so young and was already almost the highest master of martial arts. He thought that he met even more incredible talent, although he himself was not amiss. And he asked if the guy is a heavenly demon. What's Min choked on? Just judging by his age, the only monster that could be similar to his level of martial arts is a small heavenly demon. Sonmin wanted to know more about the heavenly demon, because perhaps he knows something about VIG. There are only 3 masters of martial arts in Eri who call the bloody heavenly demon Bakvusen, lease of heavenly demon berserker Bekwant. Well, the small heavenly demon Vici Hoyan, if you reason by its strength, based on the nickname, you might think that it is weaker, but this is not so. Then the man asked the young man to introduce himself. The guy of course introduced. He was more interested in what he still knew and the small heavenly demon. Unfortunately, he did not know anything else and said to talk with the townspeople. Perhaps they know something. And he also wanted to spend sparring with Sonsman. To fight for strong rivals can help him overcome the plate's development of which he encountered. And Sonmin agreed. Well, just sparring is rather boring. So the man offered to put something. Who will lose he will become a brother winner. After some time, they met in the training ring to conduct sparring. Sonmin was not sure that he would justify Hyven's expectation. Well, the man counted him too modest. His energy aura has changed greatly. It was not for nothing that he became the strongest of the Namagan clan. He was very strong for the guy, and perhaps he has already reached the title of senior martial arts. Sparring began and he used the technique that allowed him to dodge the attacks. The guy had to be careful differently, he could get down from rhythm. In response, he decided to use the flight of the soul devoid of shadow of the first form, and in addition a lightning stroke. He increased speed, and now Hyven's illusory steps did not represent a particular problem. He also got so close despite the spear. Havona liked such enthusiasm. In response, he used the technique of energy absorption, but his blow was repulsed. The bow used the technique, a spear of 9 heavens of the first form of a heartbreaking spear. But despite the fact that Hyven removed the sword, right during the guy's attack, but he quickly rapped him out and beat off his blow. From a real blow with a spear, a sword would have split. Hyven wanted to call a guy younger brother and not senior. Therefore, he used the technique of energy absorption. It was a very effective move against a spear, but the guy got out and used the spear of 9 heavens of the second shape. Lightning-based expanding blow. Well, substitute the sword with a spear. The spear fell into small chips, and put a sword to the throat of his opponent. Hyven defeated. Now Sonmin has an older brother. Hyven praised him for good sparring and admitted that for his age are rather skilled. There was not such a very big difference in the level of the amount of energy and the possession of. The spear was the truth amazing. The guy possessed basic techniques, but more advanced so far left much to be desired. His energy control was still poorly honed, which is why even in small clashes he received too much damage. In general, Hyven's victory was solely due to experience. And since they are now the brothers, Hyven invited him to go with him to the Shaolin Temple. Scarlet for a very long time waited for the end of their sparring and she clearly did not like his outcome. Somewhere in the dungeon, the elder who meditated felt the arrival of the omnipotent god Chaos. Why Hyven needs to go to Shaolin? The case in a distant promise, along with the new generation of the other 3 respected clans. They should visit the Shaolin monk of the Master of Bulion once a year. After a while, they reached the temple. Clan Namgan, Clan, Moan Clan, and Tan Clan, for respected clans, receivers peers with similar skills. More than once the heads of the clans made attempts to combine clans. Well, everything ended with a dispute to whom to give leadership, because it is difficult to decide when everyone is approximately equal in strength. They gave this problem to the solution of the next generation. The judge was chosen Monk Bulion. It is he who will decide that he will take instead of a leader. Having arrived at the meeting place, they were late. Sonmin heard about all the chapters of the clans in his past life. The reason why they were late, Hyven called the guy who stood behind him. Well, the main clans were clearly unhappy, because in appearance was an ordinary guy. Hyven introduced him. He said that it was his brother and he was not yet 20. And he is almost the highest martial arts master. Since his brother has been so 17 years old, his status increased in the eyes of other chapters. Now it became clear why Hyven chose just such a sparring bet. Well, there were no special minuses in this. Rather, there were even pluses. It's time for the heads to go to the temple. Hyven deviated and said that while they could stay here and rest. According to Hyven, it was clear that he was not indifferent to one and from the head of the clan. Although this situation was not very pleasant, still Sonmin was able to get a good ally. The monk called them and offered to go to the temple where lunches were waiting for them. Entering the temple in front of them was vegetarian food. During the meal, The guy remembered that he wanted to give the leadership found by Xian to the temple. Their meal was interrupted by a monk. He said that the Master Bullen wants to see the guy, and led him to the underground tunnels of the temple, where there was a large dungeon. The master was not known about this, since he did not particularly glow. Only one thing was known to him was a nickname eccentric Buddha. Stepping closer to the master greeted him here. He knew that the guy was a favorite of the almighty god Chaos. The guy was surprised by this statement, asked to tell more what God knows about this. But if the master tells him and survives, then he get rid of the flesh and will become a god in heaven. In this case, the guy wanted to know where he could get answers. Everything around was blurred here. The master's eyes lit up and he said that the guy should go north. After 5 years, together eternally covered with snow, he will meet someone very important. The guy did not understand what was happening. Master spoke the spirit, and therefore he does not even remember the words he pronounced. Although he served Buddha, he was obsessed, so he was nicknamed the eccentric Buddha. Perhaps the spirit that turned to him was the answer to all the questions of the guy. The monk asked to return the leadership back. The guy returned it, and in the return the master threw him a pill. It was amazing, because it was a big pill of circulation. Such a valuable thing for such a simple leadership. The master grinned, seeing how the guy was surprised. Everything described to him VIG. Hearing this name, the guy immediately forgot about the pill. He asked the master to tell where she was and what he knows about her. The master agreed, but there was one condition. He needed to fight the guy. It was Yakuk, the future Shaolin. After a while, the guy lay on the floor and writhed in pain. Although he trained for years, he lost again. He felt so sorry that he could not object to his thoughts. He lost in a fight, but at least did something. But this guy seemed to take the candy from the child. Why was there nothing about him in a past life? Jihek stood over the guy, and then the master found out from him what he was thinking about Sonmin. He said that now he does not get much. First of all, experience. Although his spear technique is quite advanced, he is not able to realize his entire potential. It is also bad in the control of internal energy. Its large volumes of energy. It is not yet subject. The master put his hand on the guy's head and said that his common energy inside was not balanced. Then he tied the staff to the leg of Sonmin and asked him to try to walk. It was difficult for a guy to stay on his feet. The master explained to him that this was his current state of the body. The mind, he understands his martial art well. The second energy, his volume of internal energy, increased quickly, and the third body. His body was not ready for this. There are no main vessels clogged. Despite the high level of understanding of energy, energy stagnates in the body. It was clear that his internal energy increased due to the pill and understanding due to the fact that he learned the improved energy of the sword while fought with Aina. If both of your feet of the same length, you can walk without problems, but they never are different lengths. First you need to clean the main vessels. After it is done, the flow of energy will flow smoothly and the problems with control will disappear. The master turned to Jihaku. He wants to help a guy with martial arts. Otherwise, after 10 years, energy will completely get out of control. He, as a follower of Buddhism, could not allow this to happen. In addition, VIG, when she came to the master, asked him to send him from Sonmin in the right direction if he addressed him. Leaving the temple, Jihak asked the guy what he was thinking after their fight. The guy thought he became much stronger and reached the level of the highest master after the years of wandering, and recently was dedicated and can now use improved energy, and yet he lost the last 2 fights. He still has a long road in front. Then Jakok said that he was called the future Shaolin, although he was still not enough. From early childhood he was trained by monks and he ate dozens of pills. But still, he could not defeat a small heavenly demon. Why did VIG come to Shaolin? Why was she there? The question that was interested in the guy. She wanted to see Shaolin, sounded very brazenly from the 17-year, but no one could blame her. Here she was disfigured. It remained to accept it for a given. Jihuk was shocked by a battle with her. He was defeated and dry. Apparently over the years of wandering, she became very strong, and has long passed on the level of the highest master. The guy smiled and told Jihak that he was her friend, and she is his goal. Most of all, the host does not get experience, but this could be compensated. Although he will face many defeats and despair in the process, you must always be ready for this. But he is already used to despair, but only to the very feeling. Still not easy to rise again and again. It seemed to him that he could catch up with her. But she is still very far away. while he completely flew far for the best VIG. That is why although he lost again and again, he was not going to give up. Then he told his friends that he was going to stay at the Shaolin school for some time. I heard this. Hyven got angry because no matter how much he asked the master to sparring with Jihawk, he always refused him. For great clans have some reputation in area, but still they are weaker than 10 great sects. There are 3 rising stars of orthodox school from the sect of the prayer, Yunmyang from the sect Wooden, Jihawk from Shaolin. In their training, combat masters are most concentrated. They are a secret weapon of the sect and will never leave it, which is why little is known about them. It was time to go to Hyven. He invited the guy his clan when he was free. Scarlet also decided to say goodbye. Although the guy did not expect her to leave, she wanted to travel without following a certain route. Although it was not bad in Shaolin's temple, she did not study martial arts, and there was no way out and from the seniority of her pants just like that. In parting, she gave him a bracelet. He was connected with her soul. If she wants to see him, he will give a signal wherever he is. One such Scarlet gave Soga. The next day, Scarlet and Hyven left the Shaolin temple. Sanmin began his training. He refused to use a spear and demonic armor in Shaolin. They remind him of the past, who sought light ways to achieve something. Together with them, he leaves his weakness here. And for a while he set aside a large pill of circulation. She will be even more than a balance in his body. The master said that after 5 years, in the place of forever covered snow, he would meet someone important. See you with VIG for another 6 years, and after 5 years a dungeon will open, in which she will meet with a Soga. Apparently, in the prophecy, an important person is Soga. He has 5 years left, whether he can fix everything. On the next sparring with Jihaku, he was pleasantly surprised that the guy left the armor and the spear. After all, I study martial arts. You learn to use your body, but the main thing in the body is the heart. The heart affects the whole body. It is the key to energy. These are Shaolin's martial arts. You need to observe the essence of Shaolin and test it on your own skin. Sanmin still heard Sakata chatter. He firmly settled in his head. Impressive combat equipment. The guy honed them well, but the learned spear technique, despite its advancedness, looked very awkward. No matter how much he trained, he could not advance further and therefore ran away from difficulties. I repeat more and easily over and over again. If someone becomes an advanced master with the help of 3 basic techniques, then he will not make sense to study advanced martial arts. The path of martial arts has no end, which is why everyone should accept their shortcomings and correct them. This is normal to experience despair, but you cannot allow him to absorb you. If you can't fly, go. If you can't go, you can't crawl. Try to crawl again. Jikin this understood after a meeting with VIG. What can an earthen beetle be hoped for? Only for a commanding in cold land. Now he only knows how to twitch, but once he will definitely take off. VIG and Soga had no talent for teaching. The genius does not know what is it not to be gifted, and therefore a better teacher from Jihawk is better. After all, he was taught by many monks of childhood itself. He studied the 72 advanced style of Shaolin and fought using the same number of different equipment and martial arts. Now we have switched to sharpened weapons. The guy's feeling was confused. Only the 6th is heightened, and the other 5 were stuck in one place. And the circulation of energy, so, it needs to be improved. His understanding is terrible. More it was necessary to work more than the rest. That day he felt the whole depth of his pity and uselessness, but did not run away. He practiced improved the spear of the 9th sky. As usually progress stood still. I coached the circulation of energy. It also came out so. And he developed his 5 feelings, finally finding a balance in them. He did not get understanding and he strengthened his training as soon as he felt it. The seasons replaced each other. He could never move the Jihawk. The experience of all the monks concentrated in him. He was a real embodiment of Shaolin. Compared to him, he was only a grain of sand in this huge sea. A larva curled up in the ground, thinks that the world is limited to her refuge. But he did not want to become her. He wanted to fly over the whole world to see him. Meditating on the mountain to him from behind was a master. He said that the guy had changed a lot, because with his martial arts, he was able to live only in the well. He has good ambitions to take off up, but so far he is not enough for this. Then the master asked him what he learned over the past 6 months. For 6 months, he learned to crawl. Then it's time to learn how to walk. The master smiled and left the guy. The guy smiled but light illuminated him. Time passed. Since his arrival in Shaolin has passed more than a year and a half. He already 20. Once he asked the Jihawk if he was experiencing the difficulties when learning with him. Although he became stronger, he could not get rid of the inferiority complex. He doubted there at least some kind of sparring with him, because he always lost. Jihawk explained to him that in their fights he repeats his martial arts. This is the process that he must pass in order to put Shaolin's martial arts in the mind. They require a deep understanding. There is no end to training martial arts, and therefore he wanted to rise above. After his words, he realized why he asked this question. He still could not get rid of the past connecting him, and still doubts people's sincerity, although they did not even give a reason for this, after all these strange situations that occurred. But still, he was afraid to get into them. Returning to the kindness has become a support for him. His current dream is not to hone his art to the ideal, and do not even get the recognition of VIG, his dream to stop running away. Approaching the master, he asked him what he knows about his blessing. At the first meeting with the master, he asked him about the being that helps him, but then he said nothing. You need to understand what is interesting for him to know about this creature, or about the effects of the blessing that it gave him. The master smiled and found out from him why after a year and a half. Only now he asked him this question, but nevertheless, he told him that he had already guessed the effect that he received, causes compassion to him. However, this blessing changes only the perception of it. It is useful only at the first impression. That no blessing will help if you are difficult to converge with people if you got something from them. The reason lies in your character and actions. This meant that all the relations built so far were not false as the guy thought. The master also told that he could save him from part of the blessing, and the first impression will depend only on him. So he will be able to build a pure relationship without a drop of guilt. Sonmin agreed. After a while, Kevin came to the temple to visit his new brother. He was surprised how the guy changed over the past year and a half, and he offered him to drink because they had not seen for so much time. He tried to check it and threw a cup of hot tea right into him, but the guy stopped it with one hand. Then it was clear that he became much stronger. The guy congratulated Hyven on achieving the highest level, but he was not particularly glad because his lover married another. She said that she did not like his arrogance and moodiness, and therefore, due to failed love, he trained as a dam to achieve this level. But still, it was interesting what the guy learned during this time in the temple. This time, he disappeared the anxious feeling that he felt at the first meeting with Hyven. He trained his mind. The menu is another year and Sonmin turned 22, and he left Shaolin. The master asked to pass a letter to the leader of the Manhwa sect in Dreamure. The guy was going there because the goddess Mushi sent him there to meet with the so-called god of time. On the way, the guy decided to use the guild service. Having called Naviel, he crawled out with dark matter and greeted him. The guy wanted to buy some information from him about 3 people: Ghostly Ball Dokdi Jun, Lightning Dak Sogo, and the small heavenly demon Vig. Dak Soga Noble helps helpless, and became from this quite famous. A week ago she stopped a large city named Rubs. Dokbi Jun makes himself a name on difficult tests. He went on a trip to find authoritative sects and martial arts for a battle with them. Now he is keeping the way all Huhua Mountains. Just Sonmin went there. Small heavenly demon of Vizi gathered many followers around her, thanks to charisma and strength. There are about 20 of them, but they are all at least a master of the highest level, because of which many began to fear them. Perhaps the same fate is waiting for the bloody heavenly demon Bakusen. He owns the northernmost territories. A group of a small heavenly demon goes to them. Soon they will clash, and most likely the bloody heavenly demon will win, as it has long been managing this territory. But the guy interrupted him, saying that he was mistaken, because a small heavenly demon will win, and he is sure of this. Last time he saw him 8 years ago, she became much prettier. The oddity is that the bloody heavenly demon and the small heavenly demons have never met each other, and Vig pretended to be a guy in his past life, but now he openly walks like a woman. Her values have changed compared to his past life. It bothered him. On a skirmish with a bloody heavenly demon, he would certainly like to break north and help her. Their meeting is 2 years left. From the moment of this promise, she has always been herself. Therefore, he must do only what he needs now. She herself will be able to take care of the bloody heavenly demon, and then she will wait for him at the top. He must keep his promises in order to become stronger. Well, there was some feeling that he had already broken some of them. Standing on Nout Vizzy was upset because she could not grow her chest. But she was called by one of her consistent. He invited her to rest because she was on the way for a long time and did not sleep. Turning around, she saw a crowd of her followers, these waiting eyes. She does not like it since she became the young head of a demonic cult. They pursue her everywhere. She was already tired and missed the host. And then a bloody heavenly demon appeared. He saw that she was full of energy and wanted to fight him. As a heavenly demon, it was curious how skilled another heavenly demon, and she caught fire with red energy, which means her readiness to accept the battle. Meanwhile, Sonmin reached the Manhwa sect. At the entrance he was met by two guys with swords. They wanted to know the purpose of his visit. He explained that he was on behalf of the Master Bullen. Hearing the name of the master, they agreed to lead him to the leader of the sect. But not having time to go to the temple of the guy, someone called. It was Dokbi Jun. He was glad to meet a guy. Although he never saw a guy, since he had a fine for vision, he recognized him by the internal energy that comes from him. Entering the temple, he was met by Sun Ha, leader of the Manhwa sect. The guy greeted him and told him what was on behalf of the Master Bullen. Moreover, the head of the alliance Marima resigned and therefore he asked the master to become a new chapter. Opening the letter in it there was an inscription, "I will not." But the Sung Ha was more interesting that the guide is familiar with the ghostly sword. He told him that a ghostly sword wants to fight him, but he does not really want it. As a master of martial arts, he loves to fight with skillful rivals and will accept a challenge from someone who is enough and experienced, but the ghostly sword is dangerous. Approaching him, the guy wanted to know if he is using dark magic. He understood why now the leader of the sect refuses to fight him. He has already reached his borders. But Sonmin was too small for these conversations because he did not feel the approach of old age. Even users of internal energy will notice over time how the force flows from your fingers, so that you will not be able to return to the peak of your strength. Well, the guy was not yet familiar with this despair to achieve more. Despite everything that is worth, the guy left realized that the conversation was not a success and decided to focus on other tasks and not think about it. He began in search of a temple from Denir about which Marashi mentioned. Entering some hut, he saw a boat whose out with golden light. It was the god of time Denir. He saw a sign and realized that Mushi sent him. He was not particularly glad of a meeting with a guy because he deceived time. And this violates the natural course of the world. Even minor changes accumulate or reflected in the stream of the world. That is why VIG is now not pretending to be a man and came into conflict with a bloody heavenly demon. His very existence already distorts the world, and changes in this flow only breeds new changes. Then God asked to tell the guy how he regressed him, but he could not answer him. Even the gods not almighty, we are simply creatures who also cannot avoid the shackles of death. And this is just what you should not talk about. Only having agreed, a red crack appeared. It was an apostle. Denir asked for an apology and asked to leave, that he would no longer talk about it. He told that the question with the guy would not be able to have any god and no mortal can. There is only one way to find out the answer. It was necessary to find Endress. Only he one escaped the shackles of death. He also distorted the cause of the investigative connection, but not the same as Soldman's. After these words, God asked the guy to disappear from his eyes, but the guy wanted to get a test from him. His trials were far away from the training that the goddess is arranged on his grief. He did not want to give him tests, because those who accepted these trials were stronger than him, but they all went crazy and died in the end. Therefore, God tells him to clean up. He had to first ventilate his head before returning. If the thirst to put his hands on the guy does not fade away, let him return and receive the test then. Leaving the temple, he decided to spend this night in the village and rest as God advised. Something ominous was in the air. He soon learned that Dokbi Jun had an ambush at night and killed the leader of the sect. He struggled his memory with all his might but did not remember anything like this in the past. The duel between the ghostly sword and the leader of the sect never took place. The ghostly sword surrendered and left the sect of Manhwa. He later fought with the little heavenly demon of VIG and died. These were the initial events. The reason for the changes was in his regression, but he continued to go and did not notice how he was entering the sect of Manhwa. but he was stopped by the members of the sect. They said that he could not go further. A network of inevitability was activated here. They pursued a dangerous man, a ghostly sword. He killed their leader with the help of evil witchcraft, showed up in the middle of the night. After he received a refusal to a duel, they remembered that the guy talked with a ghostly sword yesterday. Because of his regression, the leader of the sect died, and the ghostly sword is now being persecuted. So far, everything was incomprehensible, but one thing was clear, that it was necessary to immediately meet with a ghostly sword. Fighting with representatives of the sect, someone called him. It was Kim Jong-hyun. Representatives of the sect were surprised that he knew this guy. This was not cordoned off, but he appeared and stated that he wanted to somehow pass. Thinking, Kim decided to go with the guy. Representatives of the sect became a stupor, but Kim assured them, if he tries to help the ghostly sword, he will kill him. On the way inside, the guy was interested in what Kim was doing here. Well, I think, having come in inside, he will understand why he is here. Due to dark witchcraft energy absorption, this ability can take the goal of the target. When Kim was told that witchcraft was involved here, he thought about the art of illusion, that the ghostly sword justified his name. He crossed the line, but it seems that the ghostly sword and the sect of the mountain will decide everything among themselves. Most likely, the hunt for him will spread throughout area. Even if he manages to leave this place alive, his luck will not last long. The raven suddenly flew. It was Kim's familiar. He returned from intelligence. Shadanov was something in his ear. He found out where the ghostly sword was located. Then Kim asked the guy to go alone to him, because if you send masters of art there, they will go a victim of energy absorption and only make it stronger. He was curious how else the stream would turn up if the guy meets him.